This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Happy Friday and welcome to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Andrew Paterson, Michael Remis with you for the next couple of hours and breaking down a win for the Jets. The losing streak is over. Thank God. The vibes, I'm sure, will be much higher in the chat today here on WST because that was one that you just felt the Jets needed to find a way to win. And, you know, yesterday I asked on the show who's going to step up and put the team on their back, if you will, when needed. And we got the answer last night, and that answer is also a member of Team Canada, Josh Morrissey. Nearly 30 minutes in ice time, playing a huge role in the entire game, and then, of course, teaming up with the captain, Adam Lowry, on the OT winner last night to get a much-needed 2 points, stop the bleeding, and get some rest today as they get ready for another 2 back-to-back games on the weekend tomorrow against the Blackhawks, who will have a new head coach after firing Luke Richardson yesterday, and then back home on Sunday at 5 p.m. against the Columbus Blue Jackets to begin a busy week at home with a Tuesday game against the Bruins, a big one Thursday night against the Vegas Golden Knights, and Patrick Laine and the Montreal Canadiens coming to town on Saturday night. So, listen, we're going to break this one down. Brandon Rewucki is going to join us. We'll have some Jets talk right out of the gate with our first guest. Hammer will pop on as well. Big news this week in the Canadian Football League all around it, but with some big-time hits to the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. OC Buck Pierce, gone. Head coach of the British Columbia Lions. Ted Gavaya, the senior assistant GM for the Bombers, gone. He's the GM of the Hamilton Tiger Cats. So where do the Bombers go from here? What else is happening around the league? And we'll certainly get Hammer's thoughts on the latest on the local hockey squad as well. And, of course, it's Friday afternoon. Big weekend in the NFL coming up. Hell of a football game last night between Detroit and Green Bay, which we'll get to. Hacksaw will join us in the second hour of the program before we do the marbles and officially say the weekend is on. Just before we bring in Michael Remis, huge thanks to all of our sponsors that make this show happen each and every day. It was great to have Dustin from Hockey Manitoba on. Do not forget, we'll tell you about it a little later on. But the Ultimate 50-50 for the World Juniors is open right now. Tickets are on sale. There is a separate draw for every province. So Manitobans, when you're buying that, it's a Manitoba pool. They'll have a much better chance to win than, say, the Ontario or the Alberta one. And most importantly, all the funds raised outside of what goes to the winner staying right here in Manitoba to help grow the game and with grassroots hockey projects. So check out hockeymanitoba.ca for a link on that. We'll also have a link in the description. I also want to thank Princess Auto. Coolbet Canada just finished a fun lock shop with their best bets for the week in the NFL. You can check that out over on Edmonton Sports Talk or subscribe to the Lock Shop podcast wherever you get Winnipeg Sports Talk. Also want to thank Rolly's Transfer, Manitoba Battery, fansfirst.ca, and the Winnipeg Jets, Canadian Club, Wallace & Wallace, F Apparel, Little Brown Jug, Royal Sports, Boston Pizza, and we will get to a why not question of the day for our friends over at Non Auto Corp at Waverly and McGillivray. Michael Remis, what's up? Fun to be talking about a win today because I will admit I was nervous about last night's game, just the way things have been going for the Jets as of late, and I was very worried about what our chat and our inbox would look like if we were talking about a 5-game losing streak. Luckily, Josh Morrissey, Adam Lowry to the rescue, 2 points is 2 points, and we move on to Chicago to take on a team with a brand new head coach tomorrow afternoon.
Yeah, I'm concerned about how is this win going to affect our chat, a potential loss affect the chat the next day. It's a good way to think. So it was getting spicy over the last couple of days. They needed a win. Doesn't matter how you get it. Wasn't the prettiest W, but it was 2 points. You're feeling good. Now you got two opponents, bottom of the standings in Chicago and Columbus. So, hey, Josh Morrissey, the guy who's going to suit up for Team Canada, skating it down the ice, and Adam Lowry putting it home in overtime. Connor Hellebuck, solid as usual, and I don't know, nice play going the coaches challenge. A little cold-blooded there by the Jets. It was Tyson Kozak's first goal in his first NHL game. Not so fast, says Scott Arneal, throwing out the challenge flag and getting the goal off the board. Did they keep the puck? Still saying, this was his first, what they were getting ready with the tape to put the puck on. They showed the parents celebrating in the box, and they were dropping F-bombs after. What a scene that was, but that was the play of the game. It could have been 3-2 for Buffalo. Goes to overtime, and the captain, Adam Lowry, with the winner. What a scene that was. So nice win.
Listen, first off, thoughts and prayers to Tyson Kozak and the Kozak family. I hope he gets in the Buffalo's next game and scores right away, and this doesn't hang over his head like an albatross. I hope it wasn't just a one game, hey, you're playing against the team from your home province, here's your chance, and he doesn't get it again because, listen, he did exactly what you want a guy to do, be hungry for the puck, jumping on a rebound, putting it in. If this was against any other team in the NHL other than the Winnipeg Jets, I would have felt absolutely gutted for the young man. That being said, it was very important to get that one off the board. Good challenge by the Winnipeg Jets. Those two challenges were huge parts of the game because, of course, Buffalo challenged Gabriel Velarde's goal, which tied it in the first period. That was, I thought it was a dumb challenge, to be honest. We've seen this before. Sometimes when the goalie's pissed off, and certainly Maurice would do this at times with Connor Hellebuck, it's almost like you're going to challenge to back up your goaltender. But Velarde wasn't really close to the blue paint. So I don't really know what the logic was by Lindy Ruff in making his challenge happen. It took a little while, and you did see Gabriel Velarde on the bench going, what do you think? Kind of talking to the other guys. But once you saw that overhead camera, it was pretty clear. And I think that overhead camera was very key on the successful challenge by the Winnipeg Jets. Because the difference between the two plays was one guy made direct contact with Connor Hellebuck's pad inside the blue paint, and Gabriel Velarde was a few inches outside and had none of his body in the blue paint when he did come into contact with the UPL's gloves. So, a good night for the Jets on the challenge side of things, and obviously it didn't go Buffalo's way, but this was a close game. And there's so many. If you go over an 82-game schedule, regardless of where your team finishes in the standings, you'll see that, there's a few games you'll run away with. There's a few games you'll get pumped. More often than not, these games in the NHL are pretty darn close. And that was one with two struggling teams that both needed to find a way to win. I'm sure they were both quite fine with going to overtime and making sure they got at least 1 point. And the one thing that we know so far, Remis, is that with Connor Hellebuck in net, first and foremost, and the speed the Winnipeg Jets are able to play with when they're on, this team is a handful in overtime. And we've yet to get to a shootout this year. The Jets have gone to overtime 4 times. They've won them all right now. And again, that's not going to happen in the playoffs. But right now, in the regular season, if you're worried about banking points, get to OT and know that you've got a 60-70% chance of winning, you'll probably take that more often than not. So this was a game that the Jets had to have. Coming off that stinker at home on Tuesday night, I think they needed it. I certainly know that the fan base, the Winnipeg Sports Talk chat needed it. And I think everyone, both in that dressing room and around the city, can just exhale a little bit. And hopefully the team can build off this tomorrow against a Chicago team that's sort of in disarray, and we're going to be seeing play with a brand new head coach.
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear at this point of the schedule as the Jets are not quite at the level they were when they went 15-1. I don't know if it's playing that type of style for an extended period or the travel or the injuries. For whatever reason, we're not seeing the same, Jets team, but they're, giving everything they can, and they were able to gut out the win. They're not making the mistakes that you saw in, maybe the end of the Dallas game or Vegas, but this was a better performance. Not quite at that level of performance, but better than what we saw on Tuesday. Better than what we saw against the LA Kings. The power play had been struggling. You get gifted a 5-on-3, and you make a crazy pass from Mark Scheifele to Kyle Connor. Mark Scheifele with 2 assists, and you mentioned Josh Morrissey, a massive game. Logan Stanley's in the box for 17 minutes. You need guys to step up. How about Josh Morrissey? 29-54 in ice time. Hustler, 2 assists, including the game winner. And I'll agree with you on those challenges. I mean, Velarde's not going in the crease. Where's he supposed to go? Tell UPL to get his glove, in the crease if he doesn't want anyone to touch it. It'd be interference. He called it bullshit after the game. That one I will disagree. And a nice play by the Jets video coach. Matt Prefontaine calling out the challenge, as you said, the skate and Hellbuck's pad. And Hellbuck, very, very solid as usual. 1.9 goals saved above expected on money puck. And he's steady back there when they're not, not playing at their best level. They were, playing much better in the last couple of games, but Hellbuck, he's the rock back there. Nice performance for him. So it was certainly an improvement. Haas, I don't think was not Winnipeg Jets, blowing people away like they were earlier. But hey, 2 points is 2 points, and they needed it. And again, 2 opponents in Chicago and Columbus coming up this weekend, where you can build on that.
Yeah, Columbus will be playing the 3rd and 4 days, although they're going to have the day off, and they'll probably be in Winnipeg tomorrow, while the Jets are in Chicago. The Columbus Blue Jackets got thumped last night by the Edmonton Oilers, and tonight, I believe, they are in Vancouver to take on the Canucks. So, in all likelihood, they'll travel tomorrow. Jets will play tomorrow afternoon, and then travel and get in a little bit later on. We'll touch on that coming up with Brandon. But as I said, I mean, you can look at what the Jets were facing, and frankly, what Buffalo was facing too. I mean, that point in the schedule where the legs are heavy, and you got to find a way to take something from that game and have some sort of a result. And you saw them hold on. I thought they did a pretty good job in the third period of limiting. I mean, it wasn't high event hockey in the third period. I will say that. There wasn't a lot of shots on either side. And certainly not a lot of high danger scoring chances. But, with the way things went in the first period, and I do think that, listen, that early goal by Tage Thompson on the power play was one of those ones that Connor Hellebuyck very rarely lets in. I mean, it was from the back of the circle. It was a nice shot, but Helly's saving that thing 97, 98 times out of 100. So they needed to step up, help out their goaltender. And after that first period, Hellebuyck shut the door. He continues to deliver that sort of play. The power play takes advantage of a 5-on-3. And then the third period, let's make sure that to your point, we can't make a mistake in the final 5 minutes that costs us a regulation loss, like happened in very tight games against Vegas and Dallas last week. They get it to OT, and as we mentioned, 4-0 now in overtime. Jets are a handful once you get to that 3-on-3. And while it won't be part of the playoffs, you don't mind taking the 2 points and getting the heck out of Dodge. Probably rest day today for the Winnipeg Jets, and then afternoon game tomorrow. I believe 3:30 is puck drop against the Blackhawks at the United Center, and then back here on the weekend. Listen, just before we get to a little bit of the audio from last night's game, Remo, crazy stuff coming out of New York with Jacob Trouba right now. I mean, the rumors and possibilities of where he ends up is hot and heavy on Twitter today. And this is really a power play by Chris Drury and the New York Rangers. And I can't remember a time where a captain of an NHL team still wearing the C has been kind of treated in this fashion. But sounds like, I mean, the potential was that he could be waived today and then just claimed by whoever. Sounds like there's maybe some negotiation going on right now about where he will be willing to go to, 4 or 5 teams. I mean, the guy can certainly still play. Whether he's worth the $8 million, that's another story. But kind of crazy how this whole thing's unraveled the way that it has in the last 2 weeks in the Big Apple.
Yeah, we are keeping an eye on a couple former Jets this week. Patrick Laine coming back and scoring in 2 straight for Montreal, and now Jacob Trouba.
So good.
Yeah, now Jacob Trouba in New York. He is the captain. They tried to explore a trade in the summer. He's got 15-team no trade. He had a full no move clause up until this season, and he wasn't willing to waive his no move clause. And they said, well, if you're not going to waive it, we're just going to put you on waivers, and then some team will claim you. And so it seemed to be working out. They did not put him on waivers today. And he's making about $8 million. He's playing on the third pair. I don't think he's a terrible player or anything. I think his contract is just really big, and he's not playing up to the level of the contract, and they want to make some other moves. And when you have $8 million on your third pair, even if it is your captain, it doesn't give you a lot of flexibility. So after all the rumors and everything this morning, was he going to Ottawa for Brady Tkachuk? That one was shut down by Darren Dreger and Bruce Garriock, and some other teams rumored, Columbus, Detroit. But now, so he was not placed on waivers. That's the 1:00 deadline, which we're here, every day checking out. He was not placed on. So Pierre LeBrun said at 1:09, 10 minutes ago, Rangers still trying to get a Trouba trade done. Hearing the Ducks are still among the teams in trade conversations with the Rangers, but hearing the Blue Jackets are out. So we are on Trouba watch today, but there was another former Winnipeg Jet who was placed on waivers. Brendan Lemieux by Carolina put him on waivers for purposes of contract termination. But we're all on Trouba watch. But when you can bring up former Winnipeg Jets, why not, right?
Listen, I jumped out of my seat at Laine's goal last night. He's so back. He's so back. And listen, I hate the Habs. I always have. I'm now very much looking forward to next Saturday when the Montreal is here in Winnipeg. It's always a fun game, even if there's a lot of Habs fans there. But I have to admit, I think I'm now warming up to Montreal because they are not good. They won't be a playoff team. And our guy Patty is back. It's just so great to see him enjoying hockey. The way he's been received in Montreal has been amazing, and I'll give that market and the fans so much credit. I mean, he's sort of a flashy star player that they'll absolutely love, and what a start for him after such a tough year, losing his father, going in the player assistance program, ending up in Montreal. And then, of course, when I was in Montreal for the President's Cup in that Leafs, that Saturday night game between the Leafs and the Habs in the preseason, an injury that many thought would cost him the entire season. So the fact that he's back before Christmas, 2 vintage Laine goals was great. But as far as the Trouba thing goes, and again, we can get into this with Brandon a little bit when he joins us. I have to say, I wonder how this is going to be viewed. Like, whatever, the Rangers are going to try and improve themselves this year, and if they think they can do that by getting rid of Trouba, go for it. But, it's been well documented why he had the no trade, the no move, why it changed to a 15-team list in the final couple years of the deal, because his wife's doing her medical residency in New York City. Because of COVID, that got pushed back a year. So the original contract that was signed to ensure that this wouldn't happen, now we're at that spot. And I don't know how the players inside that room feel, but I can tell you players and GMs look at what Chris Drury's done first to Barclay Goodrow and now to Jacob Trouba. I think as great as New York City is and an awesome place to play and apparently a great organization and MSG and all that stuff, I think this is going to give some players and agents pause as to whether they want to go and play for the New York Rangers, considering the way this has ended for a couple of guys. So we'll get to all of that coming up when Brandon jumps on for a number of hockey topics. But let's hear a little bit. Listen, Josh Morrissey was the hero last night, and Josh Morrissey joined the Amazon Coast to Coast show from the dressing room after the OT winner with an epic blast at Biz Nasty, who was still recovering from his run-in with 6 Irish Traveler goons a couple of weeks ago in Scottsdale. Here's JMO after the winner for the Winnipeg Jets last night.
Yeah, good to see you guys. Good to see you, Biz. Glad you made it through, buddy. When I was skiing down the ice there in OT, I was pretty gassed, but I just figured, man, if Biz can take on 6 guys, then I can get down the sheet one more time. So, yeah, no, I mean, you know, we've got a lot of great players and obviously a world-class goalie. So far it's been going well 4-on-4, or 3-on-3 in OT, sorry. But yeah, it just, it's a little extra effort. I think kind of what the coaches want us to do is there, but we got a lot of talent and a great goalie. So just want to keep that streak alive, I guess, in overtime.
What a line, Reem. If Biz can take on 6 guys, I can let it all out in this overtime after playing 30 minutes and help my team get the win.
Yeah, it was the end of his shift, but you saw, you know, he had an opportunity there and just hauled ass down the rink, thinking of Paul Bissonnette fighting 6 guys or defending himself against 6 guys in a bar. So, you know, he was on TNT earlier in the week and Marchand was taking shots at him. I like this. Josh Morrissey giving it a little. The dressing room, like, FaceTime call. Credit to Amazon and the Jets for setting that up. I know a couple people mentioning that show. Entertaining. The Jets were playing, so I was watching. I didn't really have that one on actually.
You know, just by the way, folks, can I just say this? We always love the fan feedback in the chat. I think we're all wasting our time if we're getting into the possibilities of Jacob Trouba coming back to Winnipeg.
Bring him home. Bring him home. Reunite him and Mark Scheifele. Come on. Trouba Morrissey. Let's go. Throw it back. Bring him home.
Well, listen, would I take him on the team? For sure. I don't know how you're fitting that cap hit in. And listen, it's not. I don't think it's even worth talking about, folks. It is that far fetched. And shout out to everyone who answered. The chances of that is about 0. I am with you on that. If the Jets are going to add to the blue line, I highly doubt it will be an $8 million player who's on the verge of being put on waivers by his team, even if he has history with it. And considering the way he left and everything that happened while he was here, I'm pretty sure the Jets aren't dipping their toes into those waters. And they're certainly not far enough down in the standings to be in the mix with any possible waiver claim if those other teams are interested in. And although I guess even Winnipeg is closer to New York than Anaheim, Remo.
Bring him home. Bring him home. Come on. I think he would be a good fit after the Sandberg injury. They can't keep throwing out Pionk and Morrissey 30 minutes a night, but he makes $8 million. They have $2 million, or sorry, just under 3 in current cap space. It's definitely not happening, but it is fun to think about, Huss. Don't you want to say bring him home? Like we talked about bringing Laine home in the summer. Don't you want?
I would have loved to bring Laine home. I would have loved to bring Laine home, and we're seeing it already in his first 2 games with the Habs. But listen, just in the last 2 minutes, Larry Brooks, New York Post, breaking to advance the story, told by league source that Trouba is going to Anaheim. So from a contending team to a rebuilding team, and for a guy that wanted to be close to New York while his wife finishes up her residency, he is being traded to one of the furthest destinations from New York City. So again, the way this is handled, I think, is going to be talked a lot about in league circles, especially by players and agents. And we'll get into that a little bit more. There it is, the tweet. League source Trouba going to Anaheim. Arthur Staple also reporting from The Athletic. Rangers are sending Trouba to the Ducks. A league source says waiting on the return. I don't think the return is going to be much. In all likelihood, this is going to be... It'll be interesting to see if there's any salary retained. Not that the Ducks really need it, and maybe that's why the Ducks are the team. But we'll be keeping an eye on
Okay.
on that situation as we go through.
What
Sorry,
if the Ducks retained salary and then trade him to the Jets? Bring him home. No, I'm just kidding. Joking. Everyone's mentioning it in chat, and when a former Jet comes up on the market, everyone's like, "Oh, should the Jets try and get him?" But the salary is too much.
It certainly is. Hey, listen, Brandon's going to join us in just 1 second, but quick, let's just hear what Scott Arniel had to say about the game. I think a very relieved head coach coming out of Buffalo with 2 points and stopping the skid at 4.
Yeah, it's huge. Obviously, we've been on the wrong side here the last prior 4 games. I just like the way we battled, and lots of specialty teams. But at the end of the day, we got into that third period, kind of like the prior games where we were tied, and we gave up the lead in those games. And tonight, I just like the way we hung in, and took a little longer than 60, but it was a real good effort.
You talked about wanting to be faster. Do you feel like you accomplished that?
No, there was a lot of good things that we did. We didn't. There was times in the third they came at us slowly. They got some momentum in the third, but I thought for most of the game we did a real good job of gaining zones. Getting out of our zone, getting through the neutral zone in a hurry, and then it allowed us to get on the forecheck.
All right, here's one more from Arnie. Just the confidence that he had in using this coach's challenge and how impactful they were in last night's game.
100%. 100%. As what the league tells us, the first one by Buffalo, we were on Gabe. Sorry, we were outside the crease, and the other one, guy was standing in there. And to me, that's what the rule is, and I'm glad the way it worked out.
One other topic we're going to get into with Brandon is the play of the top line last night. I thought Mark Scheifele looked a lot better than he maybe had in recent games. Here's what the head coach thought about Scheifele along with Connor and Velarde.
I thought they were really good. I think they could have had 3 or 4. There was a lot more attack. They did a good job of getting in the O-zone, and then they attacked the net when they had opportunities. Really liked, Gabe. He spent a lot more time around the net front, which probably has a lot to do with the fact that, Scheif was in the middle a lot more. And then, him and KC, those guys, when they're on like that, they're hard to defend.
All right, so there is Scott Arniel. All right, Brandon Rewucki of Skates and Plates is going to jump on right away. I mentioned this right off the top of the show, but folks, we are into December, and you know what that means? The World Junior Hockey Championship, and Hockey Canada from coast to coast is putting on Canada's ultimate 50-50 draw, the biggest power play yet. And all of Manitoban money going into the pool will be split right here in the province, with the 50% going to grassroots hockey here in Manitoba. Now, there's 3 draw dates. The first draw is the pre-tournament draw, which is open right now through until December 26th. So you can jump on that first draw on the 26th. The second draw opens on Boxing Day and will be drawn on New Year's Eve. And then the playoff round draw opens on New Year's Eve and goes until January 25th. You can buy 1 ticket for $10. You can buy 25 for $25. Or if you want to really go hard, options all the way up to 999 tickets for $200. You can purchase the tickets today by visiting hockeymanitoba.myshopify.com. Check out the link in the description, and Remo, if you can, throw that up in the chat if people want to jump on that right now. Obviously, it'll be a big, big pool. It'll be done within our province, and it'll go to support grassroots hockey initiatives here in Manitoba. So you want to have a little fun with one of these massive World Junior 50-50 draws, get in on it now. Get your tickets. First draw is on the 26th of December. Folks, speaking of December, and guess what's after that? January in 2025. If you and your family have a move planned in 2025, get ready for it and take as much of the stress out of something that's always very stressful in moving with Rolly's Transfer. Family owned and operated for 60 years and the most trusted name in moving in Manitoba. Ready to give you and all your belongings the white glove treatment to your next destination. Check out their website at rollys.com. In the top right corner, you can request an estimate. In that, first things first, put in WST in the promo code for a special discount on moving services and moving supplies for WST listeners. and then let them know when and where you're moving and what needs to be moved. The friendly staff at Rollies will get right back to you with a great quote and get you locked and loaded for your next move. And again, the experts at Rollies giving you the white glove treatment on to your next destination. For your next move, make it Rollies the most trusted name in moving in Manitoba for over 60 years. Find out more, request an estimate today over at Rollies.com. Kind of nice outside right now, but it's been cold. It's going to be cold, and this is maybe a great time to give a Christmas gift that matters, fellas, with the help of Manitoba Battery. Don't let your loved ones be stranded in the cold with a vehicle that won't start. Make sure they're equipped to handle whatever's thrown at them this winter with a NOCO 1000 amp booster pack for only $139.50, or get them a set of 25-foot booster cables for just $65. Maybe you want to treat yourself to a great deal and grab that ice fishing flasher battery you need, or that sled battery that needs to be replaced. All for the best prices in the city, beating the pants off the big box stores, period. Whether it's you or whether it's for you or your loved ones, let Manitoba Battery help you give a Christmas gift that matters. Learn more at manitobabattery.com. Free delivery inside the city with any purchase over $60. 2 locations to serve you as well. And just as we bring in Brandon, sharp-dressed guy he is, Black Friday may be over, but we are getting ready for Christmas. And an F Apparel gift card might be the perfect gift for that guy on your list that might be wanting to up his menswear game. Nobody does it better with the custom suits, custom shirts, and more that you'll find at F Apparel. And right now, you're going to get a 15% bonus on any gift card purchase of $100 or more. So 100, 200, 300, whatever you want to give, add another 15% off on that for an even better deal on custom men's clothing from F Apparel. You can find out more at F Apparel, that's EPHapparel.com, or pop down and grab them and check out everything they've got at 190 Smith Street downtown. All right, let's bring in Brandon Rewucki of Skates and Plates. Rew, what's good, buddy? How are you?
Good, man. Doing good. How are things over there?
Well, we can all exhale. The 4-game losing streak is finished. Listen, when I was in the building on Tuesday, it was a dud. You'll get a couple of those every year. It was the first real dud on home ice. I mean, I think that Kings game was pretty ugly the week before. Disappointing because it came off 2 pretty good performances that just didn't end up in wins, and even worse, regulation losses against Vegas and Dallas. But you did wonder if this team had just completely hit the wall after that game on Tuesday. And I thought that was a big one last night. You're playing a team that had also lost 4 in a row. They just collapsed against the Colorado Avalanche, blowing that 4-0 lead on Tuesday. So, and it's a place that the Jets historically had some ugly losses in the past as well. So when that first one got past Connor Hellebuck last night, I was kind of thinking, this could be a very angst-filled show today on WST. But, credit to them. I thought the first line was better. I thought they hung in there. Some good coaching work and certainly a big challenge that helped them out. And if this team can get 1 point, they're probably getting 2. Now 4-0 in 3-on-3 overtime, and we have yet to even see a shootout this year.
Yeah, and Matt Prefontaine solidifies his spot as the number 1 video coach in the NHL Power Rankings. So no big surprise there. But it's funny because, man, going into the game, and it was in the hours leading up to it, I felt like I was almost having a panic attack about the Jets. Like, you know what I mean? Like all this stuff you mentioned there, and it's like, there's a lot of external factors working against the team right now, and the schedule is just nonstop. And it's like, oh my gosh, they can't squander the greatest start in NHL history, right? Like it was just one of those things where the way the St. Louis game ended, I was just, they got to find a way to get it done, and they did, which was the main thing there. But if they ever needed a game where the big dogs stepped up and basically said, "Hop on, let's carry you to 2 points," this was the one where they needed that. And specifically, as you mentioned there, that top line, they've got a knack for it, man. When they must know when they're about to be broken up, because I was wondering if that was going to be the case. And I think it was against San Jose earlier this year when we were asking that question, and they had like a 3-4 point game each, something like that. and then they delivered. And they needed them to because they really didn't have any other lines going in this game. So it was one of those ones where it was like, you just, when you're in a slump, mini slump, whatever you want to call it, sometimes it's just really simple. Just your best players have to be your best players, and they carried the day, and that's what happened.
Well, and listen, I mean, I said yesterday, who was going to be the guy to step up? Because this team, needed somebody to kind of break through the wall that they seem to be at. And, it's maybe a little bit of an overstatement to put the team on his back. But, one of those top players to step up and say, I'm going to win this game for us. I mean, obviously, Hellebuck was that guy, although I think he hated that first goal that went in on him. Lets in 2 in the first period, shuts the door the rest of the way. But we shouldn't be surprised that Josh Morrissey was front and center last night. And when you add in the extra minutes that he had to log when Logan Stanley spent nearly a full period in the box with the major and the misconduct, it was amazing to see the gas that he still was able to get out of the tank in overtime in a central part of the win. And the other guy I was looking at is Adam Lowry. I mean, he's been so consistent. That line's been so good. Kind of appropriate that was 44 and 17 that were central figures on that very important 2 points.
Yeah, and only the Sabres would give up a 2-on-0 from the offensive zone in overtime. That's emblematic of the struggles to try to get back to the playoff line. But Morrissey is kind of interesting because I don't know how much it's been kind of like whispered about a little bit, I think, in Jets fan circles, but Dylan DeMello hasn't had a very good year by his standards so far, and he's had to kind of carry the top pairing quite a bit here. And I don't know, I've liked Morrissey's game a lot this season, even though maybe the underlying numbers paint a slightly less flattering picture. But that for sure was one of his better games in quite some time there, maybe buoyed by the Canada nomination there. But I thought he was tremendous. Lowry, I mean, yeah, you don't really expect to. It's funny how that line always seems to have success in OT when it's usually set up for high-flying skill guys. But Lowry and Appleton usually find a way to get on the score sheet there. But for me, it was most noticeable seeing that top line come to play here. Just seeing even Velarde a little more jump in his step, getting on the forecheck and things like that, right? So as it stands right now, like there's with the holes and the injuries this team has, the Perfetti-Nemesnikov line isn't giving you a whole lot. The Sandberg injury has kind of depleted the back end a lot more than maybe anybody would have anticipated there. And so with those two ailments, and even with Scheifele's issue he's dealing with, like you need Morrissey to come and step up. You need the iteration of the top line right now to step up, and they delivered in a big way. But man, I mean, even seeing Scheifele play a little bit better, how much of a boost is that for this team? Whenever Ehlers comes back, just to have him be the guy that he was through the first, 17, 18 games of the season.
You know what? And listen, and we may as well get into this. I mean, the Team Canada, the snub for Scheifele, making the team for Josh. Considering the way that, Mark had been playing, and it was obvious, I mean, that something had been bothering him, although usually when guys are injured, they won't play, they'll rest them out. I mean, by all accounts from the team, this wasn't something that was getting worse, and he was just going to have to play through. But I did wonder, maybe more so than any other player, just that we know him so well and how locked in he is and how much Mark Scheifele wanted to be a part of that team, as to how the disappointment of not having his name selected, would affect him in the short term. And I got to tell you, considering that it had been a real tough run for that line and Mark in particular over the last little bit, dealing with whatever he was, I thought that was a really good sign that he looked a lot more like the 55 that was playing at such a high level earlier in this season. And listen, I know it's something to be said that, hey, you got to be ready. You might be able to, you might get called up if some guy is getting injured. That doesn't diminish just how disappointed a guy that had the season that he had wouldn't be there. But I thought he answered a lot of questions right now that, A, he's coming out of whatever has been bothering him. But also, if anything, this could, like I said, the best thing for the Winnipeg Jets would him go to FU mode for the next little bit, trying to prove everybody wrong. Don Sweeney's with his Boston Bruins, who's happened to make those choices, is here on Tuesday night. It'll be interesting to see how that goes, but definitely a really good sign, specifically starting with 55 last night, I thought.
Yeah, I might have to pound the 1.5 point line on Scheifele prop bets on Tuesday. That might be a pretty tasty bet. And look, there's really two ways you can take news like that, right? Obviously, everybody hopes that you take it and, like you said, it's an FU moment, and I'm going to show you the mistake that you made. But I mean, it's also possible that some players would take that and kind of internalize it negatively, and it impacts their game, right? So at the very least, he came out in a big way. I might even lean more towards, honestly, just he's getting healthier, and that's why his play is getting better, as opposed, like, it might just be more coincidental, the timing of his good game against Buffalo with the release of the rosters just a day or two before that. But I mean, it's massive, and it's tough because we don't really know what the injury or ailment is, and it could be one of those things where it's everybody can say, hey, rest him up, and that's why we built this big lead. But if rest isn't going to help it get all that better, and he's just got to play with it, then it's just the card you're dealt with, and you got to try to push through it here. And I think Scheifele is almost emblematic too of where this team is at right now, in that they just kind of got to survive until Christmas. Like, they've just got to find a way to push through, and it might not be pretty, and it's probably going to be ugly at times. It won't be high flying like we saw through the first 15 games, but can we just stay afloat for the next 6 or 7? And then you get a tiny little bit of a reprieve, and then you can go about, trying to get back maybe a little bit closer to where you were when the team gets healthier and everything like that. So yeah, there's no doubt that Scheifele, especially, with the issues that the third line is having right now, and by the third line I mean the Domestikov Perfetti line, his elite level of play is mandatory. Like, they cannot survive right now without it. So it was massive to see him come back in a big way against the Sabres.
Well, and best case scenario, maybe some good news on Nikolai Ehlers early next week. I think, they were saying 7 to 10 days. He's obviously on the IR. I think he'd be eligible to come off for the game on Tuesday against Boston if he's ready to go. But man, you sure do miss Ehlers. We've been seeing it with the power play that have been struggling a little bit, although good on them for taking advantage of one that you absolutely have to have when you got an extended 5-on-3 power play last night. Kyle Connor gets his first power play goal since late October. And the bottom line is you found a way to win last night. And again, there's some times where you can really go in and dissect how the team played. They needed a result. They just needed to change the narrative around the team. They needed to get going in the right direction. And, I'm quite interested in this game tomorrow afternoon because Chicago has been a dumpster fire, and I think some people expected more from this team. I wasn't expecting they'd be moving off their coach already this earlier in the season, and that makes for sort of a weird scenario. An afternoon game in the middle of this crazy stretch for Winnipeg. You don't want to exhale too much, saying, oh, thank God we got this win, because you would imagine that this Blackhawks team, everyone will be on best behavior for the new bench boss tomorrow night. And it does set up a pretty intriguing weekend, of course, with Columbus now coming back after playing out in Calgary, Edmonton, and Vancouver on this roadie.
Yeah, the dreaded new coach bump, right? Like, you gotta try to. I mean, I don't even think the Jets look at it like that, and can. If anything, it almost puts more urgency and emphasis on these two games, where it's like, hey, and Columbus has been much better than I think a lot of us might have anticipated, but it's the two most winnable games on your schedule for quite some time here. So you bank 4 points here, and it does lessen the importance of the schedule as it kind of deepens and thickens over the next couple of weeks here. I mean, I am shocked that Chicago made the move, but I mean, I think it's quite simple. Connor Bedard is the Chicago franchise, and I don't even know if he's necessarily regressed this year, but it's quite obvious that, mentally, the poor play by his standards is weighing on him in a big way. He's taken a bit of a step back, maybe. And maybe the management group knows better than we do that the vibes inside the room are bad right now, and they need to switch up, right? And so I imagine that's probably a big factor into why the change has taken place there. But it's funny, Bedard's overall game has kind of improved a little bit in his second season here. It's just his greatest attribute, his finishing ability, has completely nosedived over these last few weeks in particular. So, I wouldn't be sounding the alarm bells like a lot of people seem to be on selling their Connor Bedard stock. I'm actually trying to accumulate as much as I can right now at the moment.
Not a bad idea, I think. Buy the dip.
Exactly. I'm buying the dip big time. But I think he's going to be fine. Chicago isn't the free spot of the bingo card with the new bench boss in town.
Hey, let's talk about this big news today. What do you make of all this? Listen, there's been a lot of smoke coming out of New York, and I thought this was just sort of a public kick in the ass. The minute I heard Chris Kreider potentially be available, I'm like, wait a second here. But man, it sounds like they've done it. I mean, the threat of being put on waivers was what ended up getting Jacob Trouba to apparently agree to a deal. And we've talked so much about him wanting to be close to New York. He's going to Anaheim. And coming back, no salary retained in the deal. There's a draft pick and a Finnish guy with a really, really long name that I'm not familiar with that is going back the other day. We'll get you the details on that. But, I'm really wondering how this sits with other players and agents around the league. I mean, everyone's always wanted to go to New York, but when you look at the way that management group is treated like a Barclay Goodrow last year, and now doing this in such a public way to their captain, I know there's a lot of great things about New York City and why guys want to play there. I have a feeling this is going to be something that maybe doesn't necessarily help at all in the future when recruiting players to come in as free agents.
Well, this is this is the first time I'm hearing about this, by the way. But this is the prime example of why desperate general managers generally don't make the soundest decisions. Chris Drury knows he's not coming back this year unless the Rangers, I would imagine, at least make the Cup final, right? Like they're in complete free fall mode at the moment. He can't fire another head coach. He's not going to be given that opportunity here. So he's got no bullets really left to play to try to shake up his roster, right? And so you're left with the nuclear option of any team can pick you up and you can go anywhere, or you tell me where you want to go and we'll make a deal happen. It's all legal, but it's really seedy when you're talking about it from like a player agent perspective. But if you're Chris Drury, like I don't have another option at this point, right? Because I can do the right thing by Trouba and keep him here. Well, then I'm gone as GM in a couple weeks as this team continues to scuttle along. Or you do this, and if you ultimately make it deep into the playoffs and maybe win the Stanley Cup, I mean, all of that gets pushed away because people would want to join a location in a market like New York when it's a winning team like that. So I'm with you where it's like you can't run an organization like that where you're just bullying people and forcing them into situations that they don't want to be in, especially when you gave them a no movement clause or whatever it is. Like, this is all your own doing. You should not run an organization like that. But when you're a desperate GM, that all kind of goes out the window here. And it's been obvious watching the Rangers play these past few weeks. Trouba's checked out. Half the team is disinterested in playing a competitive brand of hockey. So they had to do something here. This does not guarantee that the Rangers become a much more sound hockey team, though, right? Where, yes, you remove the captain, the malcontent from the room, but the players were pissed about Goudreau being shoved out the door. It's not like they're going to see this and be like, all right, it's a rallying point, boys. Away we go to grab first in the East. This could snowball and get pretty ugly pretty quickly in the Big Apple there.
Well, I think the big question is what they do with this cap space. And by the way, the guy coming back is Urho Vakanainen, who was a former first-rounder, 18th overall in 2017 by the Bruins. Left-shot defenseman, 25 years old, did play in 68 games for the Ducks last year, scored 1 goal, 14 points, had only been in 5 games so far this season. Had spent a little bit of time in San Diego, Providence, and Boston. He's got 141 games under his belt. Very much a borderline NHL player. Yeah. Essentially, here you go. Here's Jacob Trouba. Give us our. I don't know what the pick is. I was
going to say, did the Rangers send a pick to Anaheim?
No, I believe. What did Elliot say here? Trouba to Anaheim for Vakanainen and a draft pick, and the Ducks are taking on the full salary.
That's some pretty tidy work by Drury, though, man. Like, you could argue with the way it looks, the aesthetics of it, but that deal helps the Rangers right now a pretty massive amount. But yeah, like it kind of depends what you do with the cap space there. But that's very shocking to get it out of that with no retainment.
Here's this is just from Friedge earlier today. And this was before the deal that was made, but he said, hearing the Rangers have several options, but Trouba can block this with his partial no trade. The Rangers have indicated they will waive him if he does not accept one. One team is believed to be Columbus. I'm seeing reports that he never agreed to go to Columbus and, ended up presumably agreeing to go to Anaheim. But he follows with this. This is absolute hardball, but there is a precedent. In November 2005, so we're going back 20 years, Todd Marchand refused to waive his no trade from Columbus to Anaheim as part of the Sergei Fedorov deal. So the Blue Jackets waived him, and the Ducks made the claim to complete the transaction. Again, this was going down that road where he potentially could have been waived, and that was certainly the threat. But it is very rare. I mean, you do not see this very often, and especially when we're talking about a captain of a team, a guy that was thought to be such an important piece of a Ranger team that's been very good the last few years. I mean, you probably watch a lot more of the East than I do, following Philly and those teams. Has he fallen off that much? Because I know you said he sort of checked out. I did see him dropping the gloves with Josh Anderson at the beginning of that game, a few days ago, trying to, I guess, do something for his team. So, I mean, what a weird situation for a guy that, they gave up a lot and signed to such a big deal.
Well, and it sounded like, from what I heard, that there was basically like a gentleman's agreement. We're not, in the off season, after all those rumors came about, like, we're not going to trade you. This is your last year in New York, and then you can get everything set up and be on your way after that, right? And so, like, if that's the case, Drury basically said, here's the handshake. Oops, see you later. And I think I do think that's been a big part in why the team's played so poorly, is they're just not happy with the way management's treated some of their players. Is that productive and maybe the way to go about it? I would argue not, because you still owe it to the players inside that room to maintain a certain level of professionalism and production out there on the ice. But man, I watched a couple of their games, and they played the Flyers last week. And I mean, the Flyers are no world beaters either, but that was the worst team I've seen in the past month, like in all of hockey. It was Shesterkin standing on his head left and right that kept it from being a 7-0 game after two periods. Like it was embarrassing. And I think for the last 2 months they've been like dead last in expected goal. Like they're legitimately playing horrendous hockey, and I think it goes beyond just some of the roster holes that they already have. It just seems like a team that is, whether it is the GM, whether the coach is in on this too, like it just seems like a team that, and we've seen this in Winnipeg at times, where they've just checked out. And I don't know. I don't know how you get that back, right? I think Trouba's play has fallen off quite a bit this year, which is why I'm surprised that Anaheim was willing to give up assets to bring him on board at that $8 million. But I see this deal. I'm surprised by it, but I don't look at it and go, well, there we go. The Rangers fixed their season. I still think there's moving parts there that are going to come sooner than later, and I still have my doubts that they're going to get this thing turned around.
I'm just trying to see. I think there's one more year on his contract after this one. Trouba's on there. Yeah. So one more year. So 25, 26. I think they look at this saying that, first of all, Trouba's a hell of a lot better than most of the guys we have on our team right now. And he is an experienced guy. He has been a captain. I think they can help kind of push this thing along because, man, we were going over that Ducks roster. And it's funny, Jets are going to see the Ducks in a couple of weeks when they go out for that quick Anaheim-San Jose back-to-back. There are so many top picks on that team that they've just been loading up, adding, and we just haven't seen a lot of movement forward. And I would imagine they think that this guy might be a guy who can come in. Maybe they re-sign him afterwards to be a veteran presence on their team. moving forward. I mean, from a family perspective, once he gets out and she's done her residency, which is probably going to really screw things up for them for the rest of this year, which was why they had this clause in the first place.
On that point, like I do get it. From obviously, it sucks from a personal perspective, but Jacob True is not the only NHLer that has family and partners and whatever, working all over the place and whatever the job.
True,
you know what I mean?
Listen, when he signed that deal, it was very clear there was a particular period of time that he said, I need a no move because this is happening here, and I don't want to move. Yep. Now, the last 2 years were a 15-team no trade. Unfortunately for the Trouba family, COVID pushed back the residency 1 year, and now you've got this gap in it. So I understand. I mean, the Rangers gave him that.
Yeah, that's the big thing, right? Yeah.
So, I mean, to then go around this way. Anyways, I mean, I don't think we'll see another situation like this for a while. Can't wait to hear what Trouba has to say about it at one point when he gets to his new home in Anaheim and deals with it. And obviously for him, whether this is a long-term thing or maybe the Ducks then feel like they've got an asset that they can retain some salary and maybe move him to a team later on that he might be able to compete for the playoffs. I'm not sure. We'll see that. Hey, before we go, thoughts on the Canadian roster? Maybe we didn't really get to. We talked about Scheifele and how he played. Do you think he got the raw deal? Obviously happy for Josh, but any surprises on the team and some of the guys that you just missed? Just real quickly, thoughts on the Canadian team.
Yeah. No, I mean, especially with the bottom of the roster there, I actually kind of agree with a lot of the decisions that were made. I think Scheifele deserved it over Seth Jarvis for sure. That would have been my big alteration there. I think he deserved a spot on the team. But especially for some of the Manitoba boys, like some people upset that Sanheim made the team. Ooh, you got to watch more puck, man. That dude's taking a big leap. And if he gets into the lineup, he's going to make a big impact there. So Canada has a very specific formula, Huss. It has been very successful over the last 20 years. So I imagine that they're going to lean on that until it doesn't work. But I got faith that the Canucks are going to bring it home.
Yeah, well, it's certainly, I mean, listen, if Scheifele was going to get left off, happy that it was a Winnipeg kid that gets a chance to do it, very young. I mean, great opportunity for him. Obviously, Winnipeg's Mark Stone there as well. And Travis Sanheim, looking forward to seeing what he can do as part of the club. Brandon, we'll look forward to, I guess, the newest episode. Is it out today, or are you waiting a little bit?
Already out. We're good to go.
Yep. There for you. When you're done Winnipeg Sports Talk, head over, check the new episode of Skates and Plates. Have a great weekend, buddy. Thanks for doing this.
You as well. Talk soon, guys. See ya.
Good stuff. There is Brandon Rewucki. Let's Hammer's going to join us, but while we're continuing talking hockey and on the Jets, why not question of the day for Not Autocorp over at Waverly and McGillivray? How deeply did you all exhale after Adam Lowry scored that goal? And how much more comfortable were you coming into the show in the chat today after getting that win? Let us know. We'll get to some fan feedback brought to you by Fans First a little bit later on. By the way, I do want to give a shout out to everyone that's participating in the Hockey Helps the Homeless tournament last night. Part of the reason why I was in and out of the game a little bit, I was emceeing the draft last night. And man, feeling old now. I mean, the pros that were in, Cody Eakin was in, Dale Weiss, Quentin Howden, Dustin Boyd, a lot of guys that we remember being young players in the league now doing charity events as retired players. Eric Fair was there as well. Great to see Kurt Keelback, who handled the hot stove. And then the women of that tournament done such a great job. Great to see Bailey Bram, who was part of it as well. And they're all out at Seven Oaks today. So congratulations to everyone. All the incredible fundraising they did for such a great event, and was happy to be a part of that. We're going to get to Jeff Hamilton coming up in just a minute. Let me give a big shout out and thanks to our friends at Princess Auto. Proudly founded in Winnipeg, headquartered in Winnipeg, and now coast to coast with Princess Auto, featuring the best deals on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list or start something new, and everything maybe you need to complete that Christmas list waiting at Princess Auto. Princess Auto gift cards, another great gift idea for somebody that likes working on stuff or making new things to put on that list for 2025. Panet Road, Portage Avenue West, Brandon, all waiting for you in store at Princess Auto. Of course, you can shop online 24/7, 365 over at princessauto.com. The weekend is here. We're going to be having Christmas parties and more. You better get down to your Manitoba liquor marts for you whiskey lovers and make sure you get your hands on some of the second issue of the Canadian Club Invitation Series, the Canadian Club Classic 18-year-old high proof before it is gone. The first ever Canadian Club 18-year-old whiskey. The elevated expression offers the well-known, smooth, well-balanced taste of Canadian Club Classic, carefully aged and bottled at a higher proof for a full-body tasting experience. And the Canadian Club Classic 18-year-old high proof was just awarded gold at the 2024 International Wine and Spirit Competition. Here's the thing. It's a one-shot deal. What was released is it. It's only $79.95. Great for holiday entertaining and absolutely a great gift if you got a whiskey lover on your list. So do not wait because it'll be gone before you know it. Limited quantities remaining of the Canadian Club Classic 18-year-old high proof right now at your local Manitoba liquor marts. And hey, a big happy holidays to our friends at Wallace & Wallace, the fencing and overhead door specialists in town. You see them all over the city. They've been doing it since 1946. If your property needs the security and protection of a new fence, they have you covered with vinyl, ornamental, welded wire, chain link, or wood fences. And if it's time to replace your garage door, they've also got Winnipeg's largest selection of overhead garage doors, one perfect to match your home and add value to it at the same time. Give them a call, 204-452-2700. The Wallace & Wallace team will arrange a time to come out and give you a free estimate. You can also check them out online at wallacefences.com, wallacedoors.com, or pop down and see them in person at their showroom on Lawson Crescent, just off of Kenaston. All right. He was on the DL earlier this week, but Jeff Hamilton's never missing a week on WST. Great to have the Hammer back on the program. How are you feeling? Are you no longer day to day and right back in? Oh, hold on a sec. You're muted. Reem, we good?
That's a Jeff issue. Hold on. I think he's got to pick his microphone. One sec. I'm picking your microphone.
I accepted it.
Okay.
There we go. Okay, and now we just have the echo, Reem.
So this is how it's made.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, now
this
we're
is
good.
the sausage. Okay, so to answer your question, Huss, I like to live my life day by day. This past week, I felt like for a majority of it, I was living it moment by moment. I've never been more sick in my entire life. You know,
wow.
I feel like I've said that the last 3 years. I got COVID not last Christmas, but the 2 or 3 before that. And it rocked me pretty hard, but this one was just like, holy smokes. I've never been that sick in my life. I was out all Monday. And when you get sick and you have this, and it's obviously horrible, and you get healthy again, and then you have like this renewed energy in life. Like you almost feel grateful for being healthy again. Like I had that feeling earlier this week. So, I mean, it would take a lot for me to miss my weekly hit on Winnipeg Sports Talk. So thanks so much for helping me out there. I feel much better now.
In a way, it was somewhat advantageous because there's been a lot that's happening around the Canadian Football League this week. Hopefully we'll have some time to touch on a little Jets or hockey, but let's get right to it. First things first, Buck Pierce. It had been rumored since the Grey Cup that he was the first choice. They cast a wide net. Benavides, I think, was in there. You had Rig-Maiden, but Buck ends up being the choice. What do we know about the decision that was made by BC? And I guess the biggest question for Bomber fans is where does that leave Winnipeg, obviously right now, without an offensive coordinator?
Yeah, even just to pick off some words that Mike O'Shea said in his postseason presser when asked about the potential at that time of losing Buck Pierce, he said, I'm surprised it hasn't happened earlier, right? It's been a reoccurring thing, particularly around Pierce for the last couple of years. And then other elements of his staff, which we'll get to, has also been kind of picked at here. But, Buck was a guy that was going to go to another team. Obviously had to be the right team, and they had to want him. But I don't think that was the issue. Even last year with Saskatchewan, I think, I said this on your show, I've written this. I'm under the full belief that Buck Pierce turned down that job in the sense that he wasn't formally offered it, but was going to be offered it, and pulled out of the race just before that. So, there's been other teams that have been interested. Even when he was obviously a quarterbacks coach, there was a lot of interest in Riderville and Montreal and other areas about, potential elevation of Buck Pierce in his career, and he stuck with Winnipeg. A lot of that had to do with, I think, just not being ready for this opportunity, right? I mean, you got to be sure about this. We've seen some coaches in the past where they get a lot of hype behind them, and if things don't work out with them right away early on with their new team, they never get another chance again. I think there was part of that involved in Buck's choice, but I think a lot of it had to do with just his family, his wife and his kids, and what would be the best situation for them. And I think as time went on here in Winnipeg, as they got more into the idea of moving and leaving, that support system here. Obviously, Buck's wife is from Winnipeg. So, that played obviously a role. And then you look at BC, a team that, that's where Buck Pierce started his career. It's a great landing spot for him, a team that obviously was in need of a new head coach after Rick Campbell got let go earlier this year. So, to me, it's the right choice. It's the right situation for Buck Pierce. It's the right time for Buck Pierce. And I wish him the best of luck now to figure out what exactly happens in Winnipeg here as they look to find someone to take over their offense. It's an interesting question. It's at this stage, I think it's very much in the trying to think it out. I don't think they have a lot of time to drag their feet here. They want to bring somebody in. They want to bring somebody who who can start being part of those meetings, start thinking about putting together a roster for next season, be part of those team meetings that really up until, a lot of this clarity over the last week or so has been really just Mike O'Shea and Kyle Walters, the GM, of course. So as far as candidates, it's an interesting one. We all know how much Mike O'Shea loves to promote within. We saw that obviously with Jordan Younger. We saw that with Buck Pierce. Might that be a option for them? You look at, Kevin Bourgogne. He's a guy that has worked with the receivers. He's a guy that, is certainly part of the O'Shea model, is part of a guy that O'Shea has a lot of respect for. You look at running backs coach Jason Hogan. We heard a lot of his name, particularly in the last few weeks with Brady Oliveira and the impact that he's had on him as the team's running backs coach, and just, not just bringing some of those important intangibles, like perspective and the kind of person you are away from football. So, he's obviously got a glowing recommendation from Brady Oliveira. I'm not saying as an OC per se, but just as a human being and as a quality coach. Those are probably options. Other, ideas I've certainly seen online, and rightfully so. Maybe a guy like Paul LaPolice. I just don't see that happening. When I had a conversation with Paul at Grey Cup, brought up the idea of Winnipeg potentially being a vacant spot. I think he's just happy in Ottawa with his family, and particularly is going to get more opportunity in the TSN booth. So I just don't see that. Who knows? Maybe money can be persuaded. Maybe he can be persuaded to get out of the booth and back into coaching. But I just don't see that. Other possibilities. Kahari Jones, right? Kahari Jones was kind of rumored as being a potential coach here maybe one day when things weren't going great for Mike O'Shea at the top spot. So maybe he's a guy that, certainly has familiarity with the organization. Maybe he would be somebody who would be interested, and obviously has had that role before as well as a head coach. Other names, Mike Miller out from not to be confused with Mike Miller, the current special teams coordinator.
That'd be a nightmare.
That would be very interesting. I think that would be a nightmare as far as media goes.
To the other Mike Miller.
Yeah, it wouldn't be as bad for necessarily the team. He's done a lot of great work
or something
as quarterbacks coach in Toronto for sure. It'd be someone would have to be Mike Milley or something. It would have to be something different. But there are options out there. That's up for the Bombers right now. But it certainly leaves a void. I think the timing might be right for the Bombers a little bit, right? I mean, how many more years do you have with Zach Collaros? We'll see. Probably just this one last one. So what might an offensive coordinator want to do? What might their
Jeff,
vision be for the future?
Let me ask you this, because I mean, it's been reported that both O'Shea and Walters are in the final years of their contract.
Mm-hmm.
And how might that affect will it just be a 1-year deal in all likelihood? Or I put it this way, I guess the first part of that question is, how likely is Mike O'Shea and Walters, but particularly O'Shea as the head coach, to be here beyond next season? It's not really something we've talked about. He's been so successful. I don't know why in the world the Winnipeg Blue Bombers would want to go anywhere else, and I'm not sure that Mike O'Shea does, but it is sort of weird that you have these guys in the final year of their contracts. Reportedly, that's not going to change. How might that affect the position, the security of it? Or might they be looking for someone that might have the ability that if Mike O'Shea, for whatever reason, said he didn't want to come back, that they've got someone that can move it forward in his footsteps?
Yeah, I don't think any backup plan has even been thought about or discussed, within those walls, which would probably just be Wade Miller talking to himself. I mean, I don't know who he would have those conversations with. I don't think that they're at that point, certainly not at that point now. I mean, just as far as prudent or good business goes, you're going to have to somewhat think about it, seeing that you do have a head coach and a general manager heading into their final years of their deals. Look, this is status quo for Mike O'Shea, and whether that works for the back offices there is it's kind of, not to say irrelevant, but it doesn't really matter. I just don't think going into his last year of his contract should be some kind of worrisome exit plan or suggestion that he might not be happy here. He's done this for all 3 of his renewals, right? He'd been here for 3 years, signs a new deal, and at the end of his last year, that's the confidence that comes with Mike O'Shea. And Mike O'Shea is, banked on himself and bet on himself for the last 2 deals. I don't see why Winnipeg wouldn't be interested in having him back. The players certainly still, his message doesn't seem to have gotten old with these players. A lot of guys were almost had I don't want to say a renewed faith in him, because that would suggest that maybe it was waning, but just through the season, right after they started 0-4 and then went 2-6 to reel off 10 wins in their last 11 games before the Grey Cup. That put more trust into Mike O'Shea and his ability to lead this team. Mike's a kind of guy that, doesn't think too far into the future. I don't think he'll be looking to negotiate whether, maybe Wade Miller would want that security. I don't think, especially after the reminder that people can leave your organization, something that hasn't really happened to great extent over the last, X amount of years here. But I just don't think that Mike is a guy that is thinking that. Now, at the same time here, how might that affect things? It's a good question. At what point in time would Mike O'Shea might want to change of scenery? Maybe he wants to move back to Ontario. He's a North Bay native. There are different reasons why people do different things at different points in their life. And maybe that could be something that creeps into Mike O'Shea's thought pattern. I would like to think that you would probably discuss those things, in due time, and not just come to next year's, fast forward to this point next season. And it's just like a thanks for the time, I'll see you later. I do wonder what Mike O'Shea's, feeling is about Winnipeg, what he's done here. I mean, 5 straight Grey Cups is pretty special. I don't think that there would be a shortage of other opportunities out there for him in the Canadian Football League. Here's, on that note though, Huss, before this most recent contract, a lot of the talk as the Bombers were finally making it to the dance and winning championships. This, like, a lot of the talk around Mike O'Shea was the potential to become a general manager, a GM, an elevated position. There were a lot of talks about maybe he'd go over here and want to take over kind of a bigger piece of the pie, make more money. Well, I just don't really know if that's available to Mike O'Shea anymore, to be quite frank with you. I think Mike O'Shea would be a horrendous general manager. And you only really have to look at the last handful of Grey Cups to determine that. This guy is loyal to you can say to a T, to a fault, whichever side you want to put yourself onto. It's certainly worked out. It's certainly worked in his favor during his time in Winnipeg, and he's created a lot of goodwill within this community and this football organization. But I don't know if a promotion elsewhere would be an ideal spot for Mike or the team.
He just, to me, seems like such a a coach.
He is. That's what he's like. Kind of a player, man. Like, you know what I mean?
Totally.
Mike would, Mike would probably. I bet you Mike wants to play every single game that he coaches. So it's just like this guy just loves football so much that, I think he's mature enough, obviously, and he's a good person and has all those qualities to be a GM. I just don't think he has some of the, maybe perceived negative qualities of that you have to have as a GM, where it really does become business, right? Where the business part of the game is really accentuated. Now, I've always had this theory about why he couldn't do this is because he asked his players to, fight for them, to give to their teammate, all these things, like all the things that works in his favor. If he was to kind of flip a switch, and he'd kind of be a bit of contradictory in there. So I just don't think, anyways, getting off a little off topic here. Mike's obviously a very, very quality coach, the best coach in the CFL easily for the last, several years here, and has made a name for himself, can go anywhere. I just don't know if that same, open up the purse strings kind of vibe that existed 3 years ago or a couple of years ago when he was up for his new deal is going to be there in a year's time.
It all depends on next season. I mean, if the team has a bad year and doesn't come even close to the bar that they've set, we're probably not talking about it. If all of a sudden they come back and win it at home and he's a Grey Cup champion again, then I think, maybe there's more to that. But as far as
we've seen it every year, man. Teams like to they'll tear things down. They'll get rid of people. They'll do whatever.
Done for me lately, man. It's exactly. Pro sports. As far as these guys go, you mentioned Lapo, and I'm sort of with you. I mean, he seems to have really. I mean, we talked to him quite a bit, off air, just in Vancouver, and I think he's loving what he's doing with TSN. He sees a real future in that. He's joined us in the digital space, cranking out some really good content on YouTube, and he's really into it. So, I mean, I think that probably takes him out of the mix. Kahari Jones is a really interesting one in that he certainly is a lot more experienced than most of the other guys, certainly that would be internal potential hires. Has head coaching experience, has an incredible history here with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. And I did notice in John Hodges' piece in 3 Down Nation, they talked to him, and the quote was, being able to work with O'Shea would be pretty cool. I've admired him for a bunch of years. I had no idea, though, he's currently an assistant professor at Linfield University in Oregon. Like, that was...
Well, my next question
was news to me.
As you see the light flash in my face as I open up a separate, whatever tile here to look it up, I was like, what is Kahari Jones even doing right now?
Yeah.
Like, of course it would be an honor to work for Michael Shea. I think it'd be an honor to get back into Canada and work in the league that he played and coached in. And the coaching part didn't go nearly as well as the playing part, but I definitely could see him as a guy coming here, and I could see him as a guy that would be viewed not only as a play caller on offense, but potentially a backup plan if something does go awry with Mike O'Shea. I don't even want to say awry. If Mike O'Shea decides after more than a decade of service to the Winnipeg Blue Bombers that he wants to do something else or go somewhere else, that would definitely be an option for Winnipeg. And like I said, I think one of those options back when things weren't really working out for Mike O'Shea, that I think the Bombers were thinking about that, or at least that was a guy who had connections to the franchise and was an up and coming coach. So anyway, I'm not saying that a hiring of Kahari Jones would be anything more than bringing in a quality offensive coordinator. I just think it would offer potentially, in the event that Mike O'Shea or whatever happened down the road, a potential guy who's been in that seat before, who's been a head coach before, who probably wants another shot at being a head coach after things didn't go all that well in Montreal.
When I think of the way the Bombers promoted Buck post Lapo, Buck had been a quarterback here. Then he was the quarterback's coach. He was working with a very experienced offensive coordinator, and I think really grew from that. And I'm sure Lapo was a very integral figure in his path. If the Bombers move on that, I mean, I guess Buck Pierce would be that guy if you are promoting a Kevin Burgoyne to do that. But when I think about Kahari, I mean, he's a little bit of a different candidate because, I mean, he has 4 years as a head coach. He's had 10 years as a coordinator. And he had an incredible career as a quarterback as well. So he certainly, I think, brings some things to the table that some of the other candidates haven't had the opportunity to have. The other thing that maybe makes him more likely than some of the other outside of the organization candidates, he's got a good and long relationship with Wade Miller. And I think that is significant as well.
That's the basis behind everything I just said. Absolutely. Like that's why that relationship with Wade, I think is the important piece to it, I guess, as far as at least contacting him. I think what you're trying to say, Huss, is he might be overqualified for an OC job, right? Like it's, and when you look at some of the guys in house, it's hard to say, you don't love saying it, but obviously more qualified than the guys they have in house. Buck Pierce was kind of a guy in waiting, right? Like he was a guy that you would hear lots about. I'm not saying that there aren't guys that you hear great things about within this organization. That's not at all what I'm saying, but you kind of heard those things about Jordan Younger, right? Before he took over. And ultimately you don't quite hear the same thing about the other guys that we brought up are currently within the group. That being said, they know the system better than anybody else coming in. They can learn the system better than it. And who knows if anyone knows their unlocked potential, it's Mike O'Shea. So I wouldn't rule out internal, but I do think when you look at the importance of that role, Mike O'Shea is still one of the only, if not the only head coach who doesn't have a coordinator attached to him, right? He's not going to be calling offensive plays anytime soon, obviously, but they need to figure out what their coaching staff looks like. Is Richie Hall going to come back and be a defensive assistant again? Does that make any sense? I don't know, what exactly is going on in Ottawa, if they have a resolution there for their defensive coordinator. We know that Richie Hall obviously applied for that job. They need to figure this one out. This is a big piece of the puzzle. This is no disrespect to the process that went down, but this isn't Mike Miller in special teams. You're not going to have a player retire and then take over the offense with Mike O'Shea promising him he's not going to fail. It's got to be somebody who knows what they're doing, who is a massive piece of the operation. That was the thing with Paul LaPolice and then Buck Pierce. They were massive pieces of the puzzle. They had significant influence. And as I mentioned, Mike O'Shea doesn't love a lot of change. He doesn't love, bringing in new people. That extends to players, that extends to personnel that he doesn't know well. So we'll see how all of those things factor into making a decision here. But and I wonder, Zach Collaros, how much input might he have in this process, right? He knows guys around the league. Is there anyone available that he's worked with in the past, or can he offer insight into during this process? That's going to be part of it as well. So we'll see what happens here, and we'll see who eventually they go with. I wouldn't be surprised at all if it was Kahari Jones. I think the Bombers would be extremely lucky to have a guy like Kahari Jones take over the offense, but we'll see if he's willing to be pulled away from whatever that school you mentioned earlier.
Yes, Linfield University in Oregon, right, as an assistant professor. Sklardy asks, what has Kahari Jones been teaching? Physics, chemistry, and the theory of the running game?
Well,
Good
usually
question.
Coach at places, you got to have you have a job within the school division. It's part of your salary. So I wonder if he's probably, I imagine he's not just, teaching sociology or philosophy over there and is attached to some level of football team. Otherwise, I don't know. Maybe he just knows someone at the school.
Yeah, listen, we'll need to find out a little bit more. Hey, chat, let us know from those names that we just mentioned. If you had the deciding vote, who would you like to see as the Bomber offensive coordinator? Listen, we're going to bring in Hacksaw in just a minute, but before we go, Jeff, Buck Pierce wasn't the only exodus from the Bomber organization this year. How big of a hole does Ted Gavaya's departure to the Ticats leave in the Bomber front office?
Yeah, I think it's a notable hole for sure. Obviously, Ted did a lot of great work, was part of a management team that went to 5 straight Grey Cups and won 2. His fingerprints are all over this roster and team as well. As much as anybody, you could argue. I think, when you look back at Ted's tenure, he's been trying to get a job as a GM for a couple of years now. So this one, was a bit of time coming here. So congratulations for him. He's going to get the opportunity to lead a proud franchise in Hamilton and hopefully help do what he was able to help do here in Winnipeg and bust that long Grey Cup drought over there in the Hammer. So, but as far as replacing him, it will be interesting. We'll see. There's a lot of, from what I gather, there's a lot of talk, a lot of conversations about what the fallout could be in that, and what maybe about doing some things differently, maybe, streamlining some of the U.S. scouting potentially, offering roles for people who could, offering opportunities or chances for other people to elevate within the organization. So we'll see about that. Again, I see it as an issue. I don't see it as necessarily a huge one. I think it would have been, I know they were both going for the same job, but if they lost Ted and Danny McManus at the same time, then you're talking about, a wholesale change to your scouting. But they still have Cyril Penn, and they still have Danny, obviously, and there are other guys behind the scenes like Darren Cameron and others that have helped out in that regard. So we'll see what happens with it all. We'll see what happens with that group. But that's been the beauty about this team, right? Is it hasn't exactly been the assistant GM certainly finding talent, and credit to them this year for bringing in new talent and whatnot. But as far as like re-signing and re-upping guys, I think that's been a pretty easy job for the last few years.
Hammer, great stuff as always. Take care of yourself. R&R this weekend. Lots of fluids, and we'll look forward to catching up next week. Thanks as always, buddy.
Yeah, always appreciate coming on. Thanks for pushing me down the week, and I do feel much better. So anyone out there who's fighting it, it gets better. I promise.
Take it easy. There's Jeff Hamilton at Jeff K. Hamilton on X, and of course you can read Jeff's work in the pages of your Winnipeg Free Press. All right, Hacksaw is coming up in just a minute. But let's get to fan feedback, brought to you by our friends at fansfirst.ca, your number one spot for buying and selling Winnipeg tickets on the resale market. And unlike other sites, what you see is what you pay, no fees, and the best customer service in the business, bar none. Check out the site today at fansfirst.ca. Lots of talk about these Bomber openings. Comet just talking about Buck Pierce and just remembering what he went through as a quarterback here in Winnipeg back during the era of the worst offensive line in the league. Buck Pierce took a lot of headshots in his playing days, very concerned for his health, happy about his opportunity moving forward. Isha Boy says, probably not realistic or an option, but if Ottawa fires Dice, what about him? It doesn't look like that's happening in the offseason, in this offseason going forward. I'm not sure if Bobby was as much on the offensive side. I know he did special teams before, and certainly part of the defense. Lapo, if he'd come, but Kahari would be fine, says Sklardy. Jones would be a great hire. Jared Kronk throws in T. Martin. Remember T. Martin? Oh, yeah, how about Yin Vivian, Jerry Glanville? There's a blast from the past, and he did have some CFL time with the Hamilton Tiger Cats. Good stuff coming in. Phyllis, who would get as OC? Trying to think of who would be a good choice. Had thought Lapo, but he's staying at TSN. You can keep coming with your thoughts and your submissions in fan feedback on the chat. If you're listening to the podcast, hit us up at Sports Talk WPG. Of course, fan feedback brought to you by Fans First, by fans, for fans, no fees. Check out the site today at fansfirst.ca. All right, we'll get to marbles. Keep your eyes out. In about 10 minutes or so, we'll open up registration. But let's welcome in the holiday Hacksaw. Beautiful tree in the background. Hacksaw, you just need a nice big white fake beard, and you could pull off a pretty good Santa. I'm not going to lie.
Hey, listen, I'm white enough now, okay? Don't add on. I'm feeling my age, looking my age. Thank you very much. How you doing on Beer Friday, Football Friday?
I am doing great. I'm looking forward to the weekend. I'm actually heading down south of the border. I'm going to take in that Vikings-Falcons game and the return of Kirk Cousins. But I will tell you, I think there's some people that went gray watching that game last night as Dan Campbell continued to floor it on fourth down. Lee, but just before we get to the game overall, which was awesome, two great teams that we're both going to see in the playoffs, how close is Dan Campbell to completely overstepping the line from being aggressive to being completely reckless?
Well, he is a little bit reckless, but that's out of necessity. His defense has been decimated. And you saw Green Bay get back in that game by going to the power running game and just pounding it. And as that game wore on, Campbell became more concerned that they were going to lose. And he did not want to allow a defense full of backup players to have to go back on the field to face that whole running game. And that was a big issue. Josh Jacobs just molested them in the first and second quarters and wound up with 3 touchdown rushing. And they couldn't get the defense off the field. And then Jordan Love got hot throwing the football down the field. I mean, when they were down 17-7, I thought this game is over. Green Bay's not going to recover from this. But then they started to pound the football at Josh Jacobs, and all of a sudden the whole chemistry changed. So is it bizarre? Yeah, but he's a little bit bizarre. But also he had great faith in his offensive front. They were going to blow some holes open, and they could they convert 5 fourth-down plays in the game. I think 3 of them for touchdowns. So, Campbell was gambling, but he said it's a bigger gamble if I had to put my defense back on the field. That's why he did what he did. That was a great game. Now, that being said, I hope Detroit enjoyed that because next week, isn't it next week? They get Buffalo? Wow.
Oh, yeah. They're they had to have that game because they've got that game against the Bills coming up. They still have the Niners, who are obviously very depleted right now coming out of it. And listen, I get it, and I love the aggression of Dan Campbell. I mean,
they live on the edge.
Going forward on 4th and 2 in the middle of the third quarter from your own 29-yard line, that was insane. And then the play when they could have kicked, there's only 38 seconds left in the game. Green Bay has no timeouts. The stones it took to hand that ball off, and it was near disaster. I mean, Jared Goff's going down, his knee's on the ground. If someone gets as much as a hand on him, that play is over, and then they don't even have the lead. I have a feeling, Lee, that the uber aggression of Dan Campbell, it's fun to watch. It's always exciting. But much like it did last year in the NFC Championship game against the 49ers, I could totally see this blowing up spectacularly in the playoffs against top quality NFL competition.
Well, top quality competition, and he's still going to have a depleted defensive front. He's lost so many players. I mean, he lost 3 linebackers last weekend. He does not have 3 of his top defensive linemen, and they just keep going down. He's playing guys off the developmental squad now for a lot of positions in his defensive front 7. So he had to do it. Now, I wouldn't say next week he'd do it. At one point, when I looked at the schedule at midseason and how well they were playing, I thought, hey, these dudes are going to go 16-1. Well, now that's a little bit suspect because they've lost so many people defensively. I'll say this, at the start of the game, I was really aghast at how many blown missed calls the officials had. Did you know hunting season must have started last night? Head hunting season, quarterback hunting season. I'd never seen a quarterback take as many face mask and head hits as Love took in the first quarter of that game from Detroit's defenders, and the officials didn't see it. How could you not see it? The whole world saw it. You had guys looking at what was going on in the pocket. I was pretty impressed. LaFleur did not lose his mind in the first quarter of that game, considering what's happened in the NFL in the last couple of weeks as it relates to blatant hits on quarterbacks. But boy, to me, the league officiating has been very erratic this season, and there's just too many hits on quarterbacks that are just not being called at all. There was a blatant one called in the Jacksonville game last week, but my goodness, I thought it was terrible to start the game the way it started.
Well, huge win for Detroit. They continue their hold on the number 1 seed in the NFC. Philly's going to try to keep pace. Minnesota's going to try to keep pace this weekend. We'll get to those games in a minute. You mentioned that incident from Jacksonville last week. Azeez Al-Shaair, no stranger to controversy, to late hits, but one of the more egregious ones we've seen on a sliding quarterback in a long time. Knocked Trevor Lawrence out. A stiff suspension upheld by the league. And now he seems to be just diving headfirst into being public enemy number 1, posting on his socials pictures of the Joker and saying, I will be the villain. What did you make of the suspension? Did they get it right? And what does this mean for him and the Texans defense?
Well, I went back and looked at it in slow motion multiple times, and I grant you it happened so doggone quick, but that's why you have instant replay to review. And they did throw a penalty flag. He took 2 steps. Trevor Lawrence went into a slide. He was on his wallet. The play was effectively over the minute his wallet touched the field. And yet Aziz took 2 steps, and then he led with his head, and he hit him in the face mask with a padded forearm which got a cast on it. And then you see Trevor Lawrence, the force of the hit, flip backwards, and the back of his head hit that turf so hard. And I could understand why he's got a concussion and now why he's gone for the rest of the season. He's going to have shoulder surgery on top of it. But it was an egregious hit. To me, I know defenses are taught to be on the edge and to play aggressive and all that. And it's a man's game and a macho thing and all that. But there's an honor, there's a code to respect the other guy's health and his ability to earn a living playing pro football. And that was one of the more egregious modern day hits I think I've seen. And then, then he goes on social media right after, the day after, the morning after, says, I apologize for what he did. And then he pulled the race card out. And then he pulled the religious Islamic faith card out. Said, all these people are coming after me because I'm a member of Islam and I'm black. That's got nothing to do with the fact that this was an egregious hit. And then you add on, he's been penalized twice earlier this season for blowing guys up on the sidelines, including another head hit on Caleb Williams of Chicago. And then video surfaces of him making a hit on Tom Brady in Tampa Bay in which he had him by the throat. So there's a track record in history, and that's why if you read the letter from the union, John Runyon, to the union and to the player, he demonstrated time after time after time, this guy has no respect for other players, no respect for the safety of the game, no respect for his own potential health issue. It was terrible. But boy, the referees, the inconsistency of officiating as it relates to head blows, it just blows my mind. Joe Burrow in Cincinnati, I saw him a couple weeks ago here get hit 3 times in the face mask, and they never called a penalty. And last night Jordan Love got smoked in the first quarter of that game against Detroit with blows to the head, hands in the cage, and nothing got called. So,
I've never seen more missed face masks than this year in the NFL. It's happening with quarterbacks, it's happening with running backs, and it's hard to explain how so many of those are getting missed. Lee, it's been sort of weird. No Tom Brady on the field and no Bill Belichick on the sidelines this year. Both making their TV debuts. I think both have made a real impact. Well, who's had a better rookie season? And I guess tie that into what the future of Belichick is, because there's coaches getting fired and there's going to be some people that might have interest in one of the best to ever do it.
Okay, we'll just start with Belichick. I mean, the big story that broke last night, he interviewed this past week for the head coaching job at the University of North Carolina. I first saw that, I said, this makes no sense at all, because he's been in the NFL for 24 years. He's not been involved in college athletics at all. I get a sense that North Carolina was cherry-picking with him, fact-finding with him, how to set up an intercollegiate football program that operates like an NFL program. Because now with NIL money and the transfer portal, everybody in Division I football is hiring, quote, general managers to oversee the business side of the football operation.
It's like pro sports.
Yeah. The NIL has become an integral part in recruiting. So I thought at first to myself, he's interviewing there just so they can brainstorm with him about how do we set up an infrastructure so we can compete in the Atlantic Coast Conference in this new era of the business of football, and picking his brain there. But then Belichick's people have indicated, his sources have indicated that, no, this was for the head coaching job. I think it's a bridge too far. It's a reach. He's never been involved in this. The rules are so very, very different in terms of hours on the practice field with your players, things. So I was kind of surprised. I still think at the end of the day, when we have Black Monday after the final regular season weekend, you're going to see maybe 4 to 6 more coaching firings. I still think that he might have his choice if the Jets will give him authority to be the guy there. But crosstown, the Giants, I think, have to make a move and maybe clean that closet out. And you got the mess in Jacksonville, which probably might be the better scenario of all, because they got a quarterback. in Trevor Lawrence, and they obviously want different type leadership. So I think both the GM and the coach probably in Jacksonville are gone. It's fascinating, though, and I had a kind of a different relationship with Belichick. I interviewed him about 3 times over the course of my career as a voice of the Chargers and Seahawks and a talk show host. I found him fascinating to talk to. He was never, ever going to give me inside information about your running back and my left tackle and Tom Brady. But in terms of philosophy and X's and O's, and history, he was really fun to talk to. I think he's done very, very well on television and on streaming. He comes up with off-the-wall statements. They're part of his DNA and fabric. He's been fun to listen to, but I think he wants to get back into coaching, which is why you and I talked 2 weeks ago, I think it was, the fact he's put a staff together led by Josh McDaniels, I think, going to go with him wherever he winds up going. So I think he's done well. If I'm looking for a letter grade, I'd probably give him a B+. For somebody who did not like dealing with the media, he's become a member of the media, very different, and I think has given us kind of unique insight. Tom Brady, it's taken him time, a.k.a. he's a quarterback. Young quarterbacks need lots of reps. He's a young broadcaster, lots of reps. Little too generic for me. I've yet to hear the first critique comment coming out of his mouth about certain play calls or quarterbacks are prone to throwing interceptions. He's not Greg Olsen by any stretch of the imagination. So he's there. I don't know how this relationship is going to work at Fox because, he's now become a minority owner with the Raiders, and the league's put a lot of harnesses on him, barriers as to what he can and cannot do as a member of the Fox TV crew in terms of access to facilities, coaches, etc. So he may step aside after this year and just go become Mark Davis's right-hand man as they try to fix everything that's wrong. And there's an awful lot wrong with the Raiders. I'd probably give Tom Brady maybe a B- to a C. Hasn't been what I thought he would be. He's surely not as well-spoken nor as glib as Greg Olsen. He's not Peyton Manning either.
Marbles open, ! Marbles in the chat, gang. You know what to do. Hacksaw, let's get to these games this weekend. And I'm really interested in this Chiefs-Charger game on Sunday night. We were speaking as the Friday afternoon Black Friday game was getting going, and another ridiculous Houdini act by Kansas City against the Raiders of all teams last week. Chargers coming off, though, a game that, to be honest, if Kirk Cousins doesn't have one of the worst games of his career, they're not winning. A pick six, 3 other terrible interceptions, sort of gifted that one to the Chargers. What do you make of this matchup with the Chiefs back at home looking to stay as a one-loss team and on top of the AFC, but have not looked very impressive lately doing it?
I didn't get the memo on dress code. I thought for sure you would have worn Kansas City red today. And if you were, I would have pulled my Charger hoodie out and worn the lightning bolt, and then we could have spit on each other and argued back and forth. But that being said, don't. You can't do this, Johnny come lately. Kansas City might be the most unimpressive 11-1 team I've seen, with apologies to you and to the people.
And back-to-back Super Bowl champs. Let's not forget about that.
I understand. You could pull that out of your wallet any time, but this is another season. But that being said, because of Andy Reid's brilliance and because of the magic of Patrick Mahomes, they've still been able to pull off all these victories by less than 1 score, and all these come from behind wins. So they're really good. Now they get Isaac Pacheco back. They say by playoff time, Marquise Brown is going to be on the field and going to be playing. He, of course, has been gone with the broken collarbone suffered in preseason. The biggest issue in Kansas City, aside from the injuries, and they've had a ton of things happen offensively to their skilled people, their left tackle, right tackle combination might well be the worst pair of bookend tackles in the league. And you look around the league, and there's some really bad teams. The Jets have line problems. The Raiders are a disaster up front. But I don't like either one of those tackles that Kansas City's got. And that's one of the reasons Mahomes has been sacked so much, and Mahomes has had to move the pocket. Why Patrick's thrown 11 interceptions already this season. So Kansas City is not vintage Kansas City. They don't have a lot of chunk plays down the field right now. It's become more of a tight end offense. Kelsey's having a fabulous year at 73 catches. They're going to get Pacheco back. And so Pacheco and Kareem Hunt will probably get some valuable yards. And Mahomes is the wild card in the whole thing. And they're trying to fast forward the development. A couple of the younger receivers, Gray and Watson, have started to get more receptions of late. Defense is great. They give up 311 yards per game. They force turnovers. They get some sacks. And they're doing it with all homegrown talent. And, they're starting 11 on defense. I think 9 of them are their own draft picks, which is pretty impressive. Chargers are in trouble. Justin Herbert can't do it by himself. He's brilliant. He'll chuck it down the field, but he's got injuries at running back. He no longer has J.K. Dobbins, so now they become pedestrian trying to run the football. He's got 3 first-round draft picks in his offensive front. Those guys are a little spotty in pass protection. The quarterback's taken 36 sacks, a lot of hits, a lot of pressures, still making a lot of plays. And now his top wide receiver, Ladd McConkey, is ailing. He's got a hip and a back and a shoulder, and he caught 9 passes in the first half, got hurt last week. And, they've had 3 games in a row now where they have not played really, really well, and yet they did beat Cincinnati, did beat Atlanta, though Baltimore punched them in the mouth. I think it's going to be really hard. Mahomes is 9-2 against the Chargers, ton of touchdowns, 27 touchdowns in 11 games against the Bolts. Justin Herbert's only 2-6 against Kansas City, and obviously winning in Arrowhead is really bloody tough. So I think Kansas City wins this game. It's not going to be like the era of Tyreek Hill and the other guys. It's just been methodical, but the Chargers got a lot of guys dinged on defense too. So maybe it's a breakout game for Mahomes. I do think Kansas City wins only because Chargers just don't have everybody around Justin Herbert.
Well, they got to take care of Mahomes. I mean, he's been sacked 5 times in the last 2 games by Carolina and the Raiders. And you mentioned how brutal the tackle position was. And it was so bad they moved Joe Thuney out to left tackle in the second half of that game against the Raiders. Now, DJ Humphries is good to go. He'll start at left tackle. That is a big plus for the Chiefs. It can't be any worse than it was. You got the Bills at the Rams. Big one in the NFC West between Seattle and Arizona. And the game that I'll be at, the return of Kirk Cousins to Minnesota with the Falcons on the ropes, tied now and only in first place on account of a tiebreaker with the Tampa Bay Bucks. Just thoughts on some of the other top games this weekend, Lee.
Yeah, real briefly, Buffalo Rams. The Rams defense, the entire defense made up of kids. They played really hard. They kind of look like they're gassed. I just don't know if they can slow Buffalo down because now the Bills are doing things with James Cook and their tight ends, and you got Josh Allen. And how does Matthew Stafford hold up against a really vastly improved Buffalo defense? And if the Rams lose this one, this pretty much knocks them out of the playoff race. Atlanta's going in the wrong direction. They're not playing well on the road. The decisions Kirk Cousins made last week were pathetic. The play calling, I thought, was pathetic. Even though they wound up with like 359 yards, they just scuffled and struggled. They're not using all the personnel. So I don't understand what Raheem Morris is doing with the offense in Atlanta, because I thought they had all this diverse firepower, and they're just not doing it, and they don't have much of a pass rush. And they're going to Minnesota. And there's no doubt that Sam Darnold has reinvented himself under the guidance of Kevin O'Connell. And that's a pretty good football team with pretty dangerous wide receivers. So I think Minnesota blows those guys out. Seattle, Arizona, Geno Smith versus Kyler Murray. Tough road game for the Seahawks, but Geno's having a 3,000-yard season. He's in a contract year. But the Cardinals do play a lot better at home, and Jonathan Gannon's got that defense really cranked up. So they're going to come after Geno Smith, and we'll see if Geno Smith can have 350 yards passing and running, because he's probably going to need 350 passing and running to keep Seattle in that spot. So they lose, then, there'll be a 9-way tie for first place in the NFC West. So, yeah, those are some of the other big games. And then, that old backyard rivalry, Cleveland-Pittsburgh this weekend is going to be fun. You got Jameis Winston coming off the 497 passing performance, but dude does throw interceptions. And you got Russell Wilson, that old dog, threw for 414. He looks so different, and Pittsburgh is playing so well without a lot of marquee names on offense, and the Steelers have that great defense. So there's some really cool games in the league, but obviously Chargers, Kansas City, you versus me buying beers. That's great. That's the game to watch.
Hacksaw, as soon as we're done here, we'll jump over and visit you all. What's coming up on your program, which we'll be joining once we're done Winnipeg Sports Talk?
Well, we invite the O Canada Network to join us, and obviously we'll be talking all things NFL. Huge weekend, college football championship weekend tomorrow. Ton of big games. The winners of those games go on to the college football playoffs. That's going to be phenomenal, highlighted by Georgia versus Texas. Two really good teams who don't like each other, who both got big quarterbacks who throw the football. So big weekend in college football. And of course, here in the States, the winter baseball meetings start this week. And we think we're going to find out maybe in the next 48 hours where Juan Soto is going. So we're going to talk about all those things. I cover a ton of different things. I kind of cover the waterfront on my podcast. So we'll be on at 1 p.m. Pacific. So when you're done with Winnipeg Sports Talk, just jump in and join us as part of the O Canada Network.
Get ready for the raid, Hacksaw. Thanks for doing this. Have a great weekend.
Same to you, man. And Bolts Chiefs, going to be fun. We'll talk next week. You'll be paying off bets.
Yeah, I know. I'll be wearing this hat and maybe a jersey for your visit next week. Have a good one, pal.
Thanks, Andrew.
All right, there's Lee Hacksaw Hamilton. And again, stick around after the marble race. We'll jump over. And if you're with us live on YouTube, we will head over and hang out with the Saw and his crew. Hey, it's Beer Friday, according to Hacksaw. As always, big cheers. Speaking of great beer, from Winnipeg's favorite local brew, Little Brown Jug.
You train day in and day out, learning new techniques, approaching new concepts, and living out the thrill of achieving your goals. Building a craft beer is no different. While you spend your hours on the ice, we spend ours here, brewing our trademark beer. Again, and again. Here's to pushing the status quo and challenging ourselves to build something memorable. 1919 by Little Brown Jug.
All right, good stuff. Maybe a couple 1919s. Maybe we'll bring a couple down for a little tailgating before the Viking game on Sunday. One thing I will tell you is that if you are in the city on the weekend, we've got an afternoon game tomorrow. Might be a great spot to take advantage of a little happy hour action down at your local Boston Pizza. Pick a player contests and many chances to win great prizes at BP, including that amazing trip to see the Jets in Boston later on this year at the TD Garden. But with the holidays here, they've got an incredible promo for gift cards right now. Any $50 Boston Pizza gift card will come with a free $10 bonus card. And if you have a long gift list or are buying for an office or a company, check this deal. When you get $1,000 in gift cards, you'll get an additional 10%, which means a 30% bonus on all gift card orders of $1,000 or more. You can pick those up in store at your local Boston Pizza. And BP is a great place to have your holiday party if you haven't planned that yet. You can try the new holiday menu in the dining room or have a casual party in the sports bar. Or, of course, you can always get the BP catering team to set up and serve at your office. But Jets tomorrow afternoon, NFL Sunday, Jets at 5 against the Columbus Blue Jackets Sunday afternoon. Then, of course, that big Chiefs-Chargers game. Great Sunday to post up at your local Boston Pizza. And, hey, we're 3 weeks away from Christmas or so, gang. Not even. If you've still got a long list to take care of, one trip to Royal Sports will be all you need to handle pretty much all the sports fans on your list, that's for sure. Whether you're looking at one of the thousands of pieces of Winnipeg Jets merchandise for somebody on your list, exclusive bomber gear that you can't find anywhere else, NFL, Major League Baseball, NBA, international soccer. It is all there at Royal Sports, but that is just the start of it. The biggest hockey section in town. You want to get a stick, a new pair of skates, some new equipment. It's all there waiting for you. Everything right down to skate sharpening, tape, and pucks. And, of course, so many cool things on the King's skate, snow, and surf side. You got the Yeti cooler section. Those are amazing. Snowboards, boot bindings, everything getting ready for the winter. So get on down to Royal just in time for Christmas and take care of it all. 750 Pembina Highway. And make sure to follow them on Instagram at Royal Sports Winnipeg for the latest merchandise drops and sale information. All right, last call for marbles, everybody. If you just popped in, we'll give you a minute, and then we'll get that ready to go. Let's get Michael Remis back in here. And Remo, just before we get to the Coolbet lines, fun stuff with Hacksaw. Great conversation on these games this weekend. I did not bring this up with him because it could have been a much longer conversation, but have you heard about this report from Major League Baseball about what is being referred to as the golden at-bat rule that's potentially coming to the bigs?
Of course, I have it. I've had it at the bottom of the notes. It's a big talk. Rob Manfred says a lot of buzz about the new proposed golden at-bat rule, Hustler, where you could, one time a game, you could send whatever player you want to the plate, no matter where you are in the lineup. Don't you want to see more bats from the stars, Huss? You might only see like 3-4 at-bats from the best players. Now you could see them in the most high-leverage moments at any time.
One of the stupidest things I've ever heard when we've been talking about potential rule changes. Like this, I would think this would be a joke if it was in MLB The Show. Never mind the actual Major League Baseball games. I mean, Dusty brought this up to me on the Lock Shop, and I thought he was joking. And then I did a little bit more reading on this, and it is actually something that is being talked about. Now, I've got a lot of time and a lot of praise for the rule changes that they have made over the last few years in Major League Baseball. Pitch clock at the top of that list, the instant replay, all of those things I think has made the game better for fans. I think as a spectator, the games were just way, way too long, and they've made some changes and it's made it more entertaining. The minute you get into discussing the golden at bat, where you can just put whoever you want up at any point in the game, that so fundamentally changes the integrity of baseball. It's a huge advantage for teams that might have one or two big stars as far as well-rounded lineups. I don't know how they could possibly consider this. But I guess ideas are ideas until they're actually rules are said no to.
Didn't you say earlier that you wish the Jets could put in any shooter they wanted so Rasmus Kupari wouldn't have to take a shootout or a penalty shot? Wouldn't this be the same? Wouldn't that be a golden penalty shot, Huss?
A golden penalty shot. Well, that's a little, I don't know. Those are apples and oranges. Apples and oranges. I mean, we're talking about a penalty shootout, one-on-one. That would be more similar to soccer, where you can choose whoever you want to take it. I mean, this is still
Kyle agrees with me in the chat.
Yeah. I'll still say I understand what you're doing, but it is apples and oranges. Apples and oranges to me and to you, all caps Kyle.
I mean, a penalty shot happens, like, how often does a penalty shot? I mean, at-bats happen every game. Like, you can't, I don't think anyone's really asking for this rule. Maybe they're like throw anything at the wall, but
would you have to use an actual golden bat as someone that is, it's like a video game. Like, would it look different? Would there have to be, oh my God, here comes Soto walking out with the golden bat with the bases loaded in the bottom of the sixth?
That would be pretty sick if the bat was actually painted shiny gold. I used to love when they had the pink bat home runs. I don't know if they still do that as much, but yeah, some of these ideas, the pitch clock, I think, has worked out very well, maybe too well. We went to that Gold Eyes game this summer. No one wanted to leave.
Hour and 45 minutes?
Yeah, there's a pitcher's duel. There's one run. But I think, some of the games were getting long. Guys are spending too long adjusting their gloves in the batter's box, taking practice swings. You don't have to deal with that anymore. But yeah, I think that just changes the game too much. And you like to have those moments where an unsung hero comes and makes a big hit. Like there's a statue of Jeff Blum in Chicago for his hit in the World Series. I mean, who's Jeff Blum, third baseman? So I remember we brought it up to him as a guest one time. He couldn't believe it either. But this is part of the game. Everyone takes a turn. You can't just have people cutting the line, Huss. I don't know. They're throwing everything. I don't think this is necessary. It's getting a lot of backlash, rightfully so.
All right, listen, why don't you close up the marbles, and I will head over and drop the Coolbet lines on you. NHL tonight. Jacob Trouba, now a member of the Ducks. They're at home to the Minnesota Wild. Highly doubt he'll be in Anaheim for this game tonight, but the Ducks, for that matter, 1+168 home dogs. Wild -200 on the road. Jacob Trouba's former team, the Rangers, are at home to the Penguins tonight at MSG. Will they have a new captain? I guess we'll have to wait and see. minus 196 for the Rangers, plus 165 for the Penguins. Two teams that have had great starts to the season. 17-6 Caps, 16-7 Leafs. They're at it at the ACC, or no, what is it? Scotiabank Arena. Toronto minus 147, Washington plus 125. The Devils a big minus 270 favorite over the Kraken. And coming off getting lit up by the Oilers last night, Blue Jackets right back at it in Vancouver against the Canucks. Vancouver minus 227, and probably the game of the night outside of that Pittsburgh Caps game. The Dallas Stars and the Vegas Golden Knights, two teams the Winnipeg Jets saw last weekend and lost tight games to both. Dallas, a road favorite of minus 123. Vegas Golden Knights plus 105. Those are your games tonight in the National Hockey League. As far as the NFL goes, we just banged out all of our favorite picks in the lock shop. We can't tell you the Vikings are 5.5-point favorites against the Falcons this weekend. The Steelers 6.5-point favorites at home to the Browns. As far as the top games, this huge game in the NFC West. Cardinals at home, 2.5-point favorites over the Seahawks. The Bills laying 3.5 on the road at the Rams. Niners 4-point home faves over the Bears. And the Chiefs 4-point favorites over the Chargers. They have been on the wrong side of covering for 6 straight games. Can they get it done? We will find out. That is the Sunday nighter. But if you go to the main page of Coolbet and you see the combo cards, they've got a bunch for tonight. The points from the point, apple picking season. I like the Four Nations all snub team. Points for Dylan Strome, Ricard Raquel, and Jason Robertson.
Where's that? I like that one.
Yeah, the all snub team. A point for Robertson tonight, a point for Raquel, and a point for Dylan Strome, plus 572. That's boosted up to. And then if you keep on going down to the left, we've got our lock shop partner parlay. We are taking Miami minus 5.5 against the Jets. The Bills minus 3.5 against the Rams. And we're going to take the points with the Falcons against the Vikings. I do expect Minnesota to win this game. But I think this is going to be, it has to be a much better game for Kirk Cousins as opposed to how bad he was last week. It's a place he's comfortable with. He'll be up for it. They absolutely have to have this one. Not that I don't think they will get it. But the Vikes have also been kind of Chiefsing it lately, winning games, but doing it by the slimmest of margins. I think that's a lot of points. Nice boost to plus 716. Miami minus 5.5, Atlanta plus 5.5, Bills minus 3.5. That's the partner parlay. And we did put together our house callers. And we've got Bucky Irving to score for the Bucks, Nick Chubb for the Browns, Devon Achane with the Dolphins, and James Cook for the Bills. That's boosted up to plus 1217. So you can get those right in the combo cards. Some other great exclusives for hockey in the weekend, which will be there for you. If you haven't played a Coolbet before, use the promo code WST for a 100% bonus up to $200 on your first deposit. All right. It is Friday afternoon. It is time for marbles. And before we get down to business, let's get a little Tristan Rivers music to kick things off on WST.
Yeah, just going through the list here. We did have a request, so I'm throwing it out there.
It's Friday, another week of work's gone by. You deserve to treat yourself, maybe an ice cream cake or a bottle of rye. From the whole day until that you can't deny. Why use effort even for pleasure? You find luck to try. It's time to do a marble race. No to separate and best to worst. Marble race. It's just like marbles with the punctuation first. Marble race. Don't spare or you will suffer Rolex fate. Marble race. Get to your mark before it's too late. Yeah, set go.
All right. There's Tristan Rivers. Which one was that?
That was the Metallica one.
Oh, nice, nice.
Someone requested it. I forget who. Sorry, but that was for that.
Perfect. Some heavy riffs going into marbles for the weekend. All right, what? How many do we have for today?
We have 234 marbles in on a Friday, Hustler.
Beautiful. Put one in for me, please.
Okay.
And then I think we need to. Should we give marbles to the 3 Jets that made the 4 Nations?
Sure. We could hand deliver them their hoodie.
Yeah. Hellebuck, KFC, and one of the heroes of last night's game, Josh Morrissey, nearly 30 minutes on the ice, and helping set up the captain, Adam Lowry, to get a big 2 points and break the losing streak that had everybody in this city freaking out for the past week.
Wasn't great. Needed a 2 points. Wasn't the prettiest 2 points, Huss, but they got to overtime. They got him. Moving on to Chicago, where another team, just played the Blues, who got the new coach bump with a win. Chicago bringing in and firing Luke Richardson, bringing in a new coach. They're doing some passing drills today. You can't do anything. You can't pass tape to tape, Hustlers. So we'll see how they look tomorrow afternoon in Chicago. 3 p.m. puck drop.
It's 3 or 3:30? 3?
I think I checked 3. When are you going? You're going to Minneapolis. When are you going? Going tonight? Are you going? You're going right after this?
Yeah, I'm gonna go right after this. We're gonna go to Fargo. We'll hang out there, and then we'll be able to make it in time for the hockey game tomorrow afternoon.
Yes.
So I see T. Will was in Fargo today. He joined us.
Really?
After just doing 9 at Sweet Shots.
What's that
today? Oh my God, Elder. You know what? We should give one to Tyson Kozak. Kozak for his disallowed goal. What is he, from Souris, I believe? Souris, Manitoba? Yeah, poor Tyson. But yeah, let's give Tyson a marble as well. If he didn't get his first NHL goal, we'll support the Manitoban with a marble in the marble race.
Yes.
It's the least we can do.
You think he's got any family who listen that would contact us to claim the hoodie?
Potentially. WST is pretty big in Souris.
I got our Spotify Wrapped. I don't know if it had Cirrus on there.
Well, it only takes one. So anyways, Tyson Kozak is in. Hustler in all caps. We'll do KFC. We'll do Ellie. And we'll do Josh Morrissey for their appointments to the Canadian and American teams, respectively. Where are we going for another Dylan special today?
Yes, I did. I went through the Dylan tracks.
Good.
Let me check. We've done almost all of them, so I don't know if we've done this one. This one is called Chill Adventurous Fantasy. I don't know.
Oh, I don't think we've played this one before. No,
I'm not sure.
Chill Adventurous Fantasy. I wonder if Dylan has any idea how much enjoyment he has given WSTers with the work to create these tracks.
It's a great question. I don't know.
Should try. I don't know if there's any way we can get in touch with Dylan, but we should give him. He's going to be up for a year-end award, actually, for unintentional contributions to the Winnipeg Sports Talk YouTube streams. Dylan, I can't remember what numbers are after his name, but he is our number 1 ranked marble track creator. There's no doubt about it, and we got a good one today, apparently.
I have. It's just loading. It says launching. I don't know. It's not going right away, so I'll have to try it again.
It's your boy Bruce. Yeah, we will. We do need to. We do need to invite Dylan for one. Oh, it's Sklarty. Can't wait for Huss's next cameo in front of the Super Target produce section. Who knows? Maybe something big will happen on Monday when I'm traveling back, and if that is the case, it would only be appropriate to get back into Super Target and to drop it. We're not doing one of the bus tours this time. Last time, that's just happened to be where I was when we got the news about the Hellebuck and Scheifele extensions. But hey, I mean, things are sort of happening in the National Hockey League right now. There's, obviously the big news today, if you joined us late, Jacob Trouba, after being threatened with being waived and picked up by the worst teams in the league, accepted a trade to one of the worst teams in the league. And he's now going about as far away from NYC as you can get all the way across the continent to Anaheim. The former Winnipeg Jet and former New York Rangers captain, now a member of the Anaheim Ducks, traded for a draft pick and Urho Vakanainen. But key to this, the Rangers not retaining any salary on their former captain.
Yeah, here's Pierre LeBrun. A lot of news coming out, Huss, about the trade. Rangers putting out a press release. But here's Pierre LeBrun, 45 minutes ago. Trouba's agent, Kurt Overhart, says he worked with Rangers GM Chris Drury especially hard over the past 24 hours to find a resolution. Overhart says he had permission from the Rangers to speak directly to several teams, and ultimately Anaheim was the team Trouba chose. Aaron Portzline reporting Trouba blocked a trade to Columbus and wanted to go to the beach. And the Rangers put out a statement, GM Chris Drury, thanking Trouba for his service. You want me to read that as I pull it up here quickly?
Oh, yeah, this should be. Well, what's the story with Marbles? We're still waiting, or?
No, you want me to not read it? I thought,
no. I just didn't know whether we were in an issue. Yeah, let's do that. The statement from Drury, and then we'll get to some Marbles.
Where was it? Well, first of all, the Senators are now pissed off because there were rumors that he was going to go to Ottawa for Brady Tkachuk.
That's the stupidest and most asinine. Like, they're getting ready to waive the guy, and they think that the Sens are going to trade Brady Tkachuk for him?
So
anyone that thought that was legitimate should just basically quit while they're ahead and stop paying attention to this stuff. It was that dumb.
That was reported by Larry Brooks in the New York Post. And Bruce Garriock and Darren Dreger shut that down quickly. And Bruce Garriock reporting, a well-placed source told Post Media it's total bullshit. And so that is...
I hope they put that in all caps.
They did it in lowercase with... They couldn't even write... You can't write bullshit in the newspaper now. It's crazy. Sometimes the rules of censorship and swear words... are confusing, I find.
I would agree.
Sometimes some things are allowed in certain places, but they had to write 3 asterisks instead of HIT.
Yeah, like as if, you know what, they were going to get Brady Tkachuk, but they ended up going with Urho Vakanainen and a late draft pick. Like, I can't believe Larry Brooks actually wrote that out. I guess the New York Post...
Hey, I clicked on it.
Yeah, well, it's certainly clickbait.
Okay, here's the statement. I want to sincerely thank Jacob for his contributions to the Rangers and our community, said Drury. Jacob has been an example on and off the ice for our organization and played a major role in our success over the last several years. Since coming to New York 5 years ago and serving as captain for the last 3 seasons, he has demonstrated grit, toughness, and tremendous leadership, and we can't thank Jacob enough for everything he has done for the Rangers. And doesn't say don't let the door hit you in the ass on the way out. Get the hell out
of here.
Yeah.
Enjoy Anaheim.
Yeah, it doesn't say
Make
that.
your tea times for mid-April.
Doesn't say that. We're pleased to get his $8 million cap hit off of the books. No, it doesn't say that. Anyways.
They have just acquired cap space. Our favorite thing from the TSN trade deadline board.
Yes.
What, number 7, we have Ducks cap space. Well, Ducks cap space just went to the Rangers, and where they go from here will be interesting. Of course, that'll be a hot topic around the league next week when we are back at it. But it is time for Marbles. I'm looking forward to this crazy new track from the master, Dylan 704.
239 marbles in the race. Let me pick.
Love it. By the way, T. Will, I'll be there later on tonight. Fire me a DM. I'll not sure where we're at or what we'll be up to, but
you and T. Will are gonna meet up.
He said, "Hey, I'm gonna be out having a few beers." That's definitely on my schedule. So once we get there, we'll see where we're at. Maybe a little downtown action. I got to remember where we booked a hotel.
Come on in.
Dylan 70s. Chill, adventurous fantasy.
Yes.
This looks like a wild start. All right, good luck to everyone. Shout out to our friends at Shipman Associates for providing the championship hoodies. Hearing more and more about people that are actually getting up patches made for their hoodies. so they can show off a little flair as a WST Marbles champion. Love to hear it. Love to hear it. Let's go, though. Here we are, the Chill Adventures Fantasy. We are on today.
What a name.
On WST. Farmer Brian, Ryan Kernicki, Eric Bayer. Oh, this is a down, up, down.
Yeah, down, up, down start, exactly.
I like it. Eric Bayer, first out of the gate. Val L. Nice starts for Eric and Val. Putting a little bit of space between them and the rest of the crew that is coming out right now. A little bit of a two-horse race, but again, we don't know what awaits later on. There could be pitfalls. How about T. Will on the road?
Oh,
Josh Morrissey. Oh, Josh. Josh is out. Running Man is out.
Huge lead.
Looks like Val is way up. Did the other person with Val get popped?
No.
And did Val just get... Oh, okay. This is going to be one... There's going to be a lot of casualties I can see right now. Okay, Shane Mason, I believe, is in first. Derminator... T-Will. T-Will's just going a lot slower than other people, but he's actually in the mix, I do believe. Shane Mason's the first one into the orb. The spinning orb. And he's getting ripped around pretty good. Alex Howe, I think, just got whacked. Derminator's now into the orb. No one's doing a bet. T-Will's in. Who's going to be the first one out, though? That is the key. Looks like there's some marbles that are now getting close to being emitted from the orb. Who's it going to be? Who will be first? Is it Mike Cochran, Winnipeg?
Yes.
Yes, Mike Cochran and Coach Keyser right now. There's a lot of casualties on this one so far. Lego Guy, Wicked John, One Bert, no, One Bert, bye-bye. Eric Bayer, also done. Man, there's been a lot of marbles get thrown over the top rope. Coach Keyser right there is the winner. Coming through, I didn't realize we were ending right away. Coach Keyser into the finish line. Mike Cochran. Okay, now Mike Cochran is in. Wicked John looking like he's approaching a third place finish. But again, you got to get down to the second level through. Bridget, nicely done. There's Bardo, fourth. The Herbster. Herbster just won a little while ago. Herbster having a great run of marbles luck as of late. Boring Sean Monahan at 7. Phyllis at 8. Micah Razanzoff. And then number 10, Luis Estevez. Nicely done, Luis. Oh, man, and there are a ton. I don't think... What's your prediction on how many marbles actually finished, Remis? 239. I think it's like 50.
Yeah, it says 84 finished of 239.
Okay, let's see. Did we finish? Look at Amanda in there at 12. She's so fired up. She wants a third title this year and then wants a nomination for Athlete of the Year, Female Athlete of the Year for 3 marbles wins. Paul Carr, Terminator, T. Will, 21st, pretty nice. There's Sheps. He did well. Oh, I finished. Yes. Oh, Bozeman beat you by just a little inside WST here, folks. I have a side bet with Bozeman on every single marbles race. That's why we want to make sure we're doing it. And getting through all the things. 315-407 to 315-462. That one's going to sting for my pal Bozeman today. What a dub. What a great way to start off the weekend. There's Brant. There's Cowboy. Our pal Jet Oil Tom. What's up, Jet Oil Tom? I know he was out west. I'm not sure whether he's back or not, but he was at 48th. Let's see. Snuka, 2002. Ron P. Dan Jets fan finished. Nicely done. There's Marshall Caron. Toronto Sports Network, 243. Coach Mike, Bullish Bradley. Waiters got through. Shane Mason, Matt Hyman, Scott Westman, a whole bunch of the OGs. KFC did get across the line. He is in at 68th or whatever. Swervin Mervin, Eric, holy smoly, Spency finished. Mike Wynn finished. Donnie Boy, Mary Jane, all the way down to Timothy Brown. And then here we are. There's the rest. Oh, Ross Ransby. Sorry, Ross. And about 170, 180 marbles that did not finish the race. Wow. What a great way to finish it.
I was going to say, Kozak couldn't get his first goal. There's Tyson Kozak couldn't get his first goal yesterday. Also couldn't finish the marble race. Tough week for... We got called up to the NHL.
Well, yeah, I mean, listen, he did play his first NHL game, so that's a pretty damn good accomplishment. But listen, to the benefit of the Jets, he was denied. We were cheering for Souris MB's Tyson Kozak in his next game. May he get that first NHL goal very, very soon. Just happy it's not against the Jets. Again, back to the top of the board. Coach Keyser, the winner today. Coach Keyser, congratulations. Send us an email, winnipegsportstalk@gmail.com. Let us know what size you are and for a hoodie. And I'll be back on Monday, and we'll see if you want to pop by at some point next week to pick it up. Remo, what do you have on for the weekend?
Got birthday party, kids' activities, playing hockey tonight.
Where's the birthday party at? Bowling alley?
One of those kid places with bouncy castle and climbing stuff.
Can you ever rent those out for adults?
Like
no kids and just have a big rager in there?
Oh, at that. Yeah, there's
happens?
a crazy one.
I've never been into those places, but I do wonder whether there's any late night rentals.
We're too old, Huss. You get sore doing that. Like climb. I have to follow my daughter around in this. She's pretty young, and like you're hurting the next day.
Well, I was just wondering.
The Moose
are at Texas Roadhouse tonight. Yeah, who knows? Who knows where we'll end up?
The Moose are in action this weekend, Huss. It is Teddy Bear Toss on Saturday, which is always fun, and they're playing tonight and tomorrow. I see Isha Boy says maybe see you there. So that's something. That's certainly an option.
Perfect. Hey, T. Wild, send me a DM. I can't remember which what's your Twitter. So yeah, do that, and then I'll let you know when whenever we get in there. Yes, Donnie Boy, Huss by a nose over Bose, man. Shorn's already texted me in anguish over the close call. Listen, two games. So Sunday morning, 9 a.m. Connor Rabchak, Liz Hood, probably Jacob Stoller as well. WST Sunday Live. Perfect opportunity, a great timing for the gang to get after it on Sunday morning. Recapping the Chicago game tomorrow afternoon. And, of course, getting ready for 5 p.m. on Sunday against the Blue Jackets as the Jets begin the homestand. Remo and Connor will be handling things on Monday's show. I will be back on Tuesday as the Jets welcome the Boston Bruins to Canada Life Center. Great stuff today. Thanks to Hacksaw, Brandon, and Hammer for jumping on, and all of you for joining us today on Winnipeg Sports Talk. That will do it for us. Remo, you have a great weekend. Gang, you all have a great one. And I tell you what, I will hopefully come back with some nice some tales of good times and a great football game between the Vikings, who try to keep pace with the Detroit Lions if they can beat their old starting QB, Kirk Cousins. And just on the way out, we do have some breaking news. Our final act of business for the week. The Elks have signed Trey Ford. We'll get into some more CFL offseason stuff next week. But there it is, Justin Dunk. Electric Edmonton. Elks signed Canadian QB Trey Ford to a contract extension. So it looks like Trey Ford is going to be the guy moving forward. Now that they got their GM, they got their head coach, and they've got their quarterback. That is going to do it for us, everybody. Thanks again to the sponsors that make Winnipeg Sports Talk happen each and every day. Enjoy the games on the weekend, and make sure to join Michael and Connor on Monday, and Connor with WST Sunday Live, 9 a.m., breaking down the Jets Chicago game and getting you ready for the Blue Jackets on the weekend. See you next week, everyone. Have an awesome weekend.
Oh, my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.